American. We should know. They should start.
It's a blackout.
Yes.
Wuhan, China. He's been placed in isolation. Also today, tech giant Apple announced it would close all its stores and offices in China until February 9th, joining a growing list of companies restricting operations here. This all comes as the World Health Organization declared a global health emergency, and the U.S. State Department raised its travel advisory for China to the highest level, meaning do not travel to China.
A new study out by the British medical journal The Lancet estimates that more than 75,000 people had been infected by the virus as of last week. If that turns out to be true, it would confirm what many already fear, that Beijing is massively underreporting these numbers.
The CDC reported that even if patients' initial tests for coronavirus are negative, they could still develop the illness because the test only works when patients have symptoms. A study also showed the virus can be transmitted by patients with no symptoms. A woman who traveled from Shanghai to Germany infected 7 other people while she remained asymptomatic. Those findings contributed to the decision to place 195 Americans housed at a California air base in the first federal quarantine in 50 years. They will spend 14 days there.
The best way to control a virus like this is to keep people away from everyone else while you run out the clock on that incubation period.
I'm really glad you got this clip because it leads perfectly into Dr. Fauci. And Dr. Fauci is a celebrity here on the No Agenda Show. You may remember him, one of the most famous lines ever. Do you remember Fauci?
Thank you, Mr. Bluff.
Yes.
Dr. Fauci, thanks so much, as always, for joining us.
Good to be here, Brolf.
So that is Fauci. He's a fan favorite here at the No Agenda Show. And he's talking about these I think it's him. Yes. Talking about the 195 Americans that were flown out of Wuhan and now they're in quarantine. They're not getting out in 14 days. Listen carefully.
Clearly, they're all isolated and will be for the 14 days. We have done virus isolation, but I want to be clear, the current test that we developed at CDC is not, we're not sure of the natural history of how the virus is isolated. Can you isolate it one day, then 3 days later you can't? And we are seeing in the cases that are in the hospital, we've seen people that had detectable virus, then they didn't have detectable virus, and then 3 days later they had detectable virus. We're using the virus cultures right now in these individuals more to help us learn about this virus. How much asymptomatic carriage, in fact, is there? So I want people to understand that distinction. We're not using it as a release criteria because we don't know the natural history of how this virus is secreted, and this is what we're continuing to learn.
Not using that as release criteria. Enjoy your February. They're not getting out. This is the problem: is you can get it and then it goes away and then it comes back.
Well, I don't think so.
That's what he just said. He just said that.
What he really said was the test sucks.
There's that. So this is from the task force, and they did have some soothing words for Merkins.
I want to stress, the risk of infection for Americans remains low. And with these and our previous actions, we are working to keep the risk low. All agencies are working aggressively to monitor this continually evolving situation and to keep the public informed in a constantly transparent way. The United States appreciates China's efforts and coordination with public health officials across the globe and continues to encourage the highest levels of transparency. It is likely that we will continue to see more cases in the United States in the coming days and weeks, including some limited person-to-person transmission. The American public can be assured the full weight of the U.S. government is working to safeguard the health and safety of the American people.
Donald Trump, don't trust China. China is asshole.
You know, my 23andMe comment is not far off from our future. You watch. If this is true and it comes down to DNA and, you know, what parts of people you're made out of, we shall see. We shall see what happens. No.
Well,
but it's still, I mean, ultimately it's not even apparently as bad as the seasonal flu, but if it if it comes and goes and you carry it after months, that's problematic. Or a problem, I guess.
Well, something's a problem.
So then the Department of Justice, we get some notes too. They're building a bunch. These hospitals apparently aren't really hospitals that they're building right outside of town. No, they're
just prisons.
Containers with the lock on the outside. It's a container. You can pick it right up with the crane and drop it. I think they're going to
start killing people.
So just to add some insult to injury, and this hasn't been used politically yet that I'm aware of, but the Department of Justice came out and gave a little rundown of what they've been doing most recently with people doing covert research on behalf of Chinese biolabs.
We're here today to announce 3 separate cases highlighting the ongoing threat posed by Chinese economic espionage and research theft in the United States. First, the arrest today of a Harvard University professor for lying about his participation in a Chinese foreign recruitment program. Second, this morning we have unsealed a separate indictment of a Chinese national working as a scientific researcher at Boston University who failed to mention on her visa application that she is also a lieutenant with the People's Liberation Army. Finally, this office has indicted another Chinese national for trying to smuggle vials of biological material out of the United States to China and lying about it to federal investigators. That defendant, whose entry to the United States had been sponsored by Harvard University, was a cancer researcher at a lab at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. So, this morning, the FBI arrested Dr. Charles Lieber, the chair of the Department of Chemistry and Chemical Biology at Harvard University, for making false statements regarding his involvement in China's Thousand Talents Plan and his affiliation with the Wuhan University of Technology. The complaint alleges that Dr. Lieber signed a contract with the Chinese university in Wuhan and was paid up to $50,000 per month, plus up to $158,000 in living expenses, and awarded more than $1.5 million to set up a research lab at the Chinese school and work there on researching nanotechnology. Lieber also joined China's Thousand Talents Plan, according to the complaint, a Chinese government-run program designed to entice scientists and researchers in the United States to share their research expertise with China.
Coincidence? I think not.
It is just one of those odd coincidences.
It's a beauty.
Now the Health and Human Services Secretary, Anzar, I think he's in trouble somehow with this. I mean, he's waffling and floating around the way he says stuff, and I have 2 clips. One from, I think this is the from their press conference, and then I think the other one may be from a direct television interview. But this is explaining self-quarantine.
Mr. Secretary, the mandatory quarantine for people coming in from Hubei province, will that be home quarantine or will that be in an institutional setting?
That would be at an appropriate quarantine facility of some kind for those individuals. For the U.S. citizens returning to the United States from having been in China within the previous 14 days, they would be funneled, as Secretary Cuccinelli spoke of. They would be screened appropriately to see if they present any type of symptoms of the disease, and then they would be asked to self-isolate at home over the 14 days. But for individuals from Hubei, because that is the epicenter of this with such high immediate transmission, we feel these additional measures of quarantine for up to 14 days are appropriate.
And could I just follow that? Have you selected specific quarantine centers?
We have selected them. We will announce those as DHS implements with the airlines that funneling activity.
Can you say it with me now? FEMA camps. FEMA camps in your future, ladies and gentlemen. And listen to Anzar. Anzar has a tell and a truth wants to come out moment in 39 seconds. We'll get the tell at the beginning, and then the truth wants to come out.
And the headline is the world ready for the coronavirus? How do you answer that question?
So, Ed, we've actually been very transparent about what we do not know yet about this virus. Which
wow.
We've actually been very transparent.
So, Ed, we've actually been very transparent about what we do not know yet about about this virus, which is we don't know full information about its contagiousness, about its severity profile, which is why I'm delighted that at the invitation of the Chinese government, we will accept the invitation to participate as part of the World Health Organization's team of experts that will deploy to China to assist Chinese experts on the ground to actually get ground truth, to study this virus, get all the information to both help the spread, prevent the spread further in China of it.
This guy's
wow.
To actually get ground truth, to study this virus, get all the information to both help the spread, prevent the spread further in China of it, but also global spread of this virus.
You got the clip of the day for finding that one.
I think I deserve it in this case. Clip of the day. A double whammy.
Yeah, it's a double. You got the cough, and you got the slip.
Got to help the spread, man. Oh, I mean, oh, my goodness.
Well, at the dinner table conversation, we were talking about some other aspects of this.
Sorry.
Which includes the fact that men should be more susceptible for various reasons.
70% more men infected than women so far.
Yeah, and that has to do with the structure of the lungs and the smoking and the rest of it. But, the conversation came where the Chinese have too many men anyway.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
So, it might be, to even things out a little bit.
Who knows?
It's a pretty grisly conversation, I'll tell you.
Yeah, but now we know that historically speaking, having been around the block for a bit, being a little bit older, all of these scares, Ebola, Zika, swine flu, H1N1, SARS. People die. 30,000 a year die from seasonal flu. People die. So in the United States, I don't feel we have to be that worried. Europe is also not shutting everything down now. And my goodness, they can't, of course, because this is the real issue. It's not just China, as one of the first clips said, who's just our factory anymore. We're intertwined. So if China goes down, it's going to hurt. Just economically speaking.
Dame Astrid sent us a note discussing this in what's going on in Japan.
Yes.
You got that?
I did.
And she mentions that the Ginza is just empty. The streets are deserted.
Oh, yeah. People, they don't want to eat. They want to go out. They don't want to do anything. I know.
Yeah, this really will slow down your economy. Bankrupt. This is not good. I mean, just that part you mentioned at the beginning, just not the
Economically, it's an issue.
It's not good.
Yeah, I got a note from
it's being ignored, I think, somewhat. And I should also mention this, since you started off by mentioning that the paper about the HIV being inserted into Corona somehow, which may or may not be true, I think is bullcrap.
I do too. But
it did get, by posting this, which is nothing wrong with posting the fact that this paper exists, Zero Hedge got kicked off of Twitter, gone.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Very disturbing.
That's not suspicious. Our Intel analyst, this is the one who caught the fact that a lot of the Canadians flying back from Iran were actually came from the university in Scandinavia, where they're experts in nuclear technology. So he sent me sent me a follow-up note. Here's some facts regarding the virus. Though he said he got this. So he's an intelligence analyst, so he gets his information from sources. So he says a well-placed source with direct ties to mainland China. I know it sounds a bit like a weird blog post, but it was private to me, and he has some standing in the show since this previous observation. So he attends his source attends Johns Hopkins University in Nanjing, China. Or attended, and as an alum, he still has a log on to the libraries where he drew some research from. So the short version of what our analyst has found out, the most susceptible to the nCoV, the novel coronavirus, the highest ACE2 gene structures, people who contract never recover from it. The virus becomes recessive after incubation and initial flare. Many of those who had an initial infection with fever and cough, but without cytokine storm. What is that, John? What's the word? Cytokine storm. CYTO.
I don't know. This is a word I'd have to look at. Is this okay?
Well, it's
I'll spell it.
CYTOKINE. Cytokine.
Cytokine, I think.
Cytokine. So without cytokine storm, if you look that up for me, had showed a compromised immune system and recurrence of the virus. In several cases, the third or fourth recurrence in the reduced immune response, there's that word again, cytokine storm developed. Those people died. Because the virus is immunocompromising, any recurrences... Yes?
Stop you. A cytokine storm is an overproduction of immune cells.
Ah, yes.
And then activating compound cytokines, which in a flu infection is often associated with a surge of activated immune cells into the lungs.
So you kill yourself by your body tries to protect yourself.
Yeah, like some people you can almost self-induce an asthma attack, but then there's certain things that get released, histamines, and then the next thing you know, you're half dead.
Because the virus is immunocompromising, any recurrences further weakens the immune system. The Chinese are using the term airborne AIDS in describing the approach to it. The patient in Seattle was given an experimental antiretroviral after his first post-infection flare, fully recovered on the drug. He was declared cured. When he stopped the drug, the virus flare recurred. This is from the New York Times, January 22nd article. He's back in the hospital. The basic prevention is to quarantine and avoid people in the ACE2 gene sequence. Those people will have the highest viral load and be super spreaders. Yes, this is much less deadly currently than the flu virus. However, it has the potential to grow undetected at a much higher rate. It has also had an impact on the global economy that has already surpassed anything flu virus has ever done, according to our intelligence analysts. So the ACE2 gene sequence, is that something you can get from 23andMe? Can we figure that out? Can we target people now who have done this?
I think this, again, is the Han Chinese.
Probably. No, he has the list. It's the same list that Buzzkill Jr. probably saw with most susceptible, where Americans comes down at, the halfway down the list, 50%. So that lower. Kind of sounds a bit like something that might have been bioengineered. Who knows?
Well, these things, naturally occurring substances do evolve.
Do that too, yeah.
On their own, and then you just happen to be the unlucky winner.
And you're a winner, and you're a winner.
I got myself a case of Wuhan flu. I don't know what I am supposed to do. Didn't know I had it when I gave it to you. Now we all got the Wuhan flu.
There you go.
Well, the point that if you can't get rid of it once you get it, you're forever.
It's more like herpes.
Yeah, sounds like a lot like herpes. You can't get rid of it.
Oh man.
Huh. Well, that's all bad news.
It's not great.
But I still think the real bad news is yet to come. It's interesting. The economy will coast for a while.
Oh, it's got to be hurting. It has to. The numbers have to make it.
No, it's going to be huge.
Thank you.
It's going to be.
And
just
this is what I said. And everyone's going to start using this. Hey, if we had a public company, we'd be having this meeting right now. Hey, we still have that, that shit on the balance sheet. Why don't we get the bad news out, blame it on Chinese flu or whatever, say, your sales, something problem.
Well,
supply
that's
chain.
A common effect. Yeah, if it's bad weather, you blame it on whatever's going on.
Of course.
But it's going to definitely have an effect. And whether or not the market accepts the blame, and because the market will go, well, okay, we'll let you slide on this one.
Yeah.
But if it continues, and if this is like what that Johns Hopkins report and that intelligence guy, which I believe him because
me too.
Johns Hopkins is a spook operation.
You think
at this point?
Yes.
And they would have good information.
Yeah.
And so if he's looking at their stuff and they get this doesn't go out to the newspapers, this kind of thing. They don't want to freak out the public.
No. This is just for podcasts. That's just so the Intel guys can sit around and laugh.
The way the dinner conversation opened up, we started talking about it. It went like this. Oh, Adam read a note from one of our producers talking about this big programming operation, and all the programmers are staying away from the Chinese. You remember that note?
Yes.
They're all huddling anywhere, but they don't want to be hanging out with the Chinese coders. And JC starts off by saying, for good reason. Great. That helps.
But that is very strange. And that, to me, it's kind of new that, and the public is so poorly informed, only reading headlines typically. Just, and people have tuned out to news because what is news anymore? I think that's why, one of the reasons why people like listening to No Agenda is because, we at least distill, we may not be right all the time. We can distill through the bull crap.
No, but we present everything that's out there that could be presented.
Yes.
And we have people out there who also do analysis. They give it to us and then we reanalyze. It's fantastic.
That's the thing, is that we have our own analysts. And they, exactly.
And they have access to stuff. We have people that have access to stuff that
definitely
the public doesn't have access to, and the reporters don't. They can't even barely use a computer. So they're not going to get anything from the New York Times. They're only interested in getting Trump out of office and keeping Bernie from getting elected.
Hey, and you know what? CNN is on it again. If you thought that now we'll get to the impeachment in a moment because, of course, it's going to be an acquittal vote on Wednesday. That's expected unless something crazy happens, but. At this very moment, and we have tomorrow, very important for the Democratic Party, is they are going to have the Iowa caucus. That's all in leading up to who will be the nominee. So it's an internal thing. It's not a government thing. It's it's the club of Democrats. That's how they run it. First, I want us all to pay very close attention. I believe Joe Biden's campaign is over. It is completely done and wiped out. He will never recover because he's no longer needed. He is no longer, we needed him to be an opponent of Donald Trump for the impeachment. Impeachment over. Thanks, Joe. You really did your job for us. You can now go away. You can't really function anyway. Mark my words, Joe Biden's campaign is over. Which leaves us with the Sanders surge. This is an incredible problem. We need to stop Bernie Sanders. And CNN did a fabulous job by reporting, here's the clip and then you'll understand.
And David, CNN had planned to bring everyone the final Iowa poll from CNN and the Des Moines Register tonight. That is no longer happening. Please explain to our viewers why.
Yeah, Anna, it was brought to CNN's attention earlier this evening that somebody who was questioned for the survey raised an issue with the way that their interview was conducted. That means the results of the poll could have been compromised. We weren't able to determine exactly what happened during this person's interview, and we don't know if it was an isolated incident. So out of an abundance of caution, CNN and the Des Moines Register and Selzer and Company, who conducts the poll, decided not to release tonight's poll. We take the standards that we apply to our polling very seriously, and to keep the highest possible standards, we wanted to present this information to the public and explain why we didn't proceed with releasing this poll this evening, Anna.
So a lot of this stuff is almost like superstition, how things work and what you need. And even this caucusing, which maybe, John, you can try to explain. It's not incredibly clear certainly not to anyone outside of, Iowa. But this poll is an annual, or a poll that is always run and published on the eve of the Iowa caucus. And it is supposed to be a very important indicator as to who is going to be who's going to get the most people caucusing / delegates for the ultimate choice of the Democratic contestant in the big reality show. And for CNN to have someone call, it's not like this person was on the air. I have no proof. There's a lot of, according to official sources, there's no names anywhere, but someone called up and said, hey, who are you voting for? Bernie, Elizabeth, Joe, and apparently didn't say Buttigieg. And so that immediately was taken by CNN into canceling the obvious news that Bernie Sanders is surging ahead of everybody. So they're meddling in the primaries for sure. And unless you have something else, I'll play the ABC Iowa update because I think it kind of encompasses everything.
Well, I do have the Iowa wrap, the scheme, because I have some thoughts on this.
Okay, whatever you want.
Play yours, and then I'll see if I can't remember what mine's about. I produced it last night. Play mine.
And I will.
You just said play yours. Now it's play mine. Hold on. What's Iowa Wrap? Here we go.
With just 2 days to go before Iowa's first in the nation voting for the 2020 election, the Democratic presidential hopefuls are trying to make every second count. Senator Elizabeth Warren made it to a late-night campaign event Friday after leaving President Trump's impeachment trial. They'll spend the weekend crisscrossing the state ahead of Monday night's caucuses. The latest Monmouth University poll shows former Vice President Joe Biden holding a slight edge over Senator Bernie Sanders among likely caucus goers.
This is interesting. Wait a minute. Whose report was that? Who did that one?
This is CBS.
Let's listen to ABC.
The Central Intelligence Agency broadcasting system. They know.
ABC has a different edge.
In Iowa tonight, a final frenzy. The caucus is now just 2 days out. Senator Elizabeth Warren.
And listen closely to who they make sound like a doofus.
Fresh off impeachment duty, making a mad dash from the Capitol to rally her supporters dressed in a campaign hoodie.
I heard there were some people who wanted to do some selfies.
Yeah, that's the soundbite you want from someone you want to marginalize.
And making her closing argument with voters today.
We must come together as a party and beat Donald Trump. That is our job. Yes.
Tonight, a surging Senator Bernie Sanders shaking off concerns about his electability.
But I believe that we are the strongest campaign to defeat Trump.
A Democratic super PAC trying to stop his momentum before the first votes are cast, pushing out an aggressive ad campaign questioning the senator's health.
I do have some concerns about Bernie Sanders' health, considering the fact that he did have a heart attack.
And I believe that our campaign is the campaign of energy, is the campaign of excitement.
The divide within the Democratic Party on full display in a critical election year. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib booing the mention of Hillary Clinton's name as she campaigned for Sanders.
No, I'll boo. Boo. You all know I can't be quiet. No, we're going to boo. That's all right. The haters will shut up on Monday when we win.
Today, apologizing, writing, I allowed my disappointment.
Making Bernie look bad, very bad, because he has bad surrogates.
With Secretary Clinton's latest comments about Senator Sanders and his supporters get the best of me. Former Vice President Joe Biden on a 20-city, 17-county bus tour throughout Iowa.
Mr. Vice President, have you benefited from having the state largely to yourself during this critical stretch?
All I know is it's been feeling good for a long time here, and it still feels good.
Joe has his head down. He has no energy. He's depressed.
He's pooped.
Because he knows that it's over.
No,
Impeachment
I'm
done.
going to disagree with this.
Oh, hold on.
I mean, I wrote it down.
Hold on. Let me just finish the clip and then we'll.
Okay.
All I know is it's been feeling good for a long time here, and it still feels good, and we're going to keep moving.
The DNC changing its rules, dropping the donor threshold. The pathway is now open for the billionaire mayor who is self-funding his own campaign to possibly qualify for the Nevada debate happening later this month.
So you disagree with my Joe theory?
Yeah, because the guys I follow, which are the Democrat operatives, and many of them are on Twitter. John Cooper is my favorite. And they have you can tell that this Biden thing is, they're doing everything they can. They're not going to let Bernie win. And so if Bernie doesn't win, it's going to have to be Biden. And here's what my basic new thinking. The entire impeachment process is designed to get Biden to win. The reason they stalled one whole month before presenting it to the Senate is so they could time it so the senators would have to be in Washington, D.C. that are all running against Biden.
Right.
Biden has no restrictions, so Biden can go pound the pavement in Iowa day after day after day as this impeachment drags on, coincidentally moved right to the point where the caucuses are.
Right.
And stretched, so that's where they talk. Both these reports that we played is these senators are rushing to Iowa. They have to fly over, and they're coming in near midnight to meet up with people. And then they got to fly back to Washington for the vote on Monday. This is all a scheme.
No,
by the Democrats.
I agree with that. I totally agree. And it was maybe more orchestrated to thwart Bernie than to help Joe, is my idea.
Well, Bernie's definitely the target.
Yeah.
They have to stop Bernie. So I would not disagree with the theory that Bernie is number one on the list of why we're doing this.
Yes.
But I still believe that is Joe, because the one who got to take advantage of this situation, of this impeachment, which they stretched needlessly, and they took their 24 hours. They did everything they could to keep these senators in Washington, D.C., where they had to attend. They couldn't say, hey, I'm out of here. I'm going to go to Iowa. I got an election to run or a campaign to run. They kept them in Washington. And the only one there's only two people that benefited from that, and that is Buttigieg and Biden, because they're not senators. So there's pounding the pavement.
And although it won't make any difference, it's also benefit to Bloomberg.
Well, Bloomberg's not in the caucuses.
Okay. I wanted to play that.
Doesn't benefit Bloomberg. He's just spending money left and right. He's already spent, I think, $200 million. I tweeted some of these numbers.
Look at the players here who are at work. This is you heard a little bit in the ABC report. This is the anti-Bernie ad that ran in Iowa.
The most important thing is we have to beat Trump.
And we've seen the damage that Trump and the Republican Congress have done. I doubt if Bernie Sanders can beat Trump.
I like Bernie. I think he has great ideas. But Michigan, Pennsylvania, Iowa, they're just not going to vote for a socialist.
I do have some concerns about Bernie Sanders' health, considering the fact that he did have a heart attack.
I think it's very important that the Democrats nominate somebody that can beat Trump.
I don't feel as though Bernie Sanders would do well against Donald Trump.
I just don't think Bernie can beat Trump.
DMFI PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
So that's the DMFI PAC. That is the Democratic Majority for Israel Political Action Committee, Board of Directors Ann Lewis. This is straight from Wikipedia. She's at the top of the list. White House Communications Director during the Clinton administration. Henry Cisneros, HUD Secretary during Bill Clinton's administration.
They're a bunch of Clinton operatives.
Oh, yeah, and Jennifer Granholm, who's also a current CNN political contributor. It's obvious who's behind this, just to get rid of Bernie. And I am very disturbed by how far they will go. And do they not realize that there are a lot of people who really like Bernie Sanders?
There's a couple of things should be noted. We've noted it before. I think Bernie could beat Trump. In fact, I think he's the only one who could beat Trump, because it's a clear distinction. I think it makes the voters have to really take a side.
Yeah.
I don't think he would beat Trump, but I think he could beat Trump. I don't think anybody else can.
Well, not with this pushback from his own quote unquote party.
Well, he's not in the party. That's the joke of it. He's an independent.
Yeah, but he's running on the Democrat.
They don't think they're that fond of this concept.
You know, it was kind of interesting that in the impeachment vote, of course, his vote comes through as an independent, yet he's running for the Democratic ticket, which is, I'm not quite sure how that works. Why did they even can't they just say, nah, you're out? Why'd they even let him in?
Socialists in the party. There's the left contingent, the AOCs and all the lefties that are taking over the party.
That's the future of the party. We're basically going, if you look at the two parties in the future, the left will have two parties, the Communist Party and the Nazi Party. As of course, the right-wing conservatives will see the left as communist, socialist communists, and the left will see the right-wing conservatives as Nazis. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be Nazi commies. That's our future. And Michael Moore spoke at the Bernie rally. He was a little fired up.
They are removing the rule to be on the debate stage where it says you have to have so many people donating to you. Otherwise, instead of 27 people on the stage, there'd be 227 people on the stage. So you had to have a certain number of Americans that would give you a buck. That's all the rule said. But they would to show that there's support. And that's how they determined who would be on that debate stage. Today, they removed that rule because Mike Bloomberg, the billionaire, the Republican mayor of New York City, they removed it so that he could be in the next debate. He doesn't have to show he has any support amongst the American people. He can just buy his way onto the debate stage. And I got to tell you what's so disgusting about this. I watched the debate in Iowa here 2 weeks ago. The all-white debate. And the fact that the DNC will not allow Cory Booker on that stage, will not allow Julian Castro on that stage, but they're going to allow Mike Bloomberg on the stage because he's got $1 billion fucking dollars.
Yep, that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
we love that guy.
So Bloomberg has a new ad.
He hates, what is this with Moore? Does he hate Jews?
Oh, no. No one, you can't say that. I should mention, the visuals for this ad, you don't see people, you just see dogs. Dogs. Dogs on leashes, dogs looking at each other. It's a dog ad.
It's a dog ad for women.
Mike Bloomberg is the man to lead us.
He will create more jobs.
Mike's not afraid of the NRA, not one bit.
Trust me, Mike will get it done, yeah.
Get it done, yes.
He does not tweet. Oh.
I like Mike.
I like Mike. I lick Mike. I'm Mike Bloomberg's dog. I approve this message.
I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
Dogs are people, too.
There it is. The dogs will be voting. It's apparently the only thing.
Hold on a second.
The only thing that'll vote for Bloomberg.
I'm getting pummeled by ads for Bloomberg, Bernie, and Steyer.
Yeah.
And even though Steyer really hasn't spent much.
That was real, by the way. That's not satire.
That's what I'm asking, because I have not seen this ad in California. What is the point of this ad? What do you think?
I think it was put together quickly as a joke because of the weird way he shook that collie's head. If you saw that video.
I don't know anything about this.
He was doing a meet and greet somewhere, and someone had a dog. The dog comes up to him. He grabs the dog by the nose. The dog opens his mouth, and so he basically grabs the top part of the dog's nose and head, and just kind of shakes it like he's shaking someone's hand. It's very disturbing.
Wait, you grabbed the dog's muzzle and shook the muzzle?
But just the dog's mouth is open, so just the top part of the muzzle.
Oh, he put his hand in the dog's mouth
yes!
and shook his hand?
Yes.
What? The dog didn't clamp down?
Sadly, no. Otherwise, you would have heard about it.
He had to know that dog. Nobody in their right mind does that.
He might, well, unless he's a reptile.
Well, there's that.
Dogs are
supporters
too.
Maybe the dogs will just vote for him. I don't know. Maybe people.
I have an ISO for the potential end of the show.
Okay. Is it the Bloomberg? Yeah. Okay.
I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
End of show.
Okay. It's a contender.
I got another one later.
Okay. Let me see what else we have going on in the 2020. 538 Media, the great pollsters who predicted,
who got one thing right 20 years ago and they've never gotten anything right since. Those guys,
pretty much.
Silverman or whatever his name is.
Yes, that guy.
Silver.
Brad Silver or something.
No, it's not Brad. Some other.
It's the guy that everyone trusted when he said Hillary will win 98% sure. That's the guy.
Yeah. Nate
Silver. There you go. So they interviewed Stacey Abrams. A quick quote: Stacey Abrams, Malone of 538 Media says, "Do you think the country will elect a black woman president in the next 20 years?" Abrams says yes. Question: Do you think they'll elect you? Abrams says yes. That's my plan. I'm very pragmatic. At least she admits she wants to be the president.
Wow. So she gets her talking points from the CFR, and that's what she says?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe she's ad-libbing there. I think that this is not the way to do things.
Yeah, well.
Pretty bold.
Yeah. So that's kind of...
You're all on board with it because you think you're all...
I think she...
You bought into it. You bought into the Stacey Abrams...
I really don't know what to think anymore. I mean, we clearly differ on the Biden stuff, so I want to see what happens first. I think we'll know very quickly.
I'm actually almost getting to warm up to the idea, which has been promoted, and this has also been promoted in Zero Hedge and elsewhere, that Hillary is going to be the vice president with Biden.
Well, this was you laughed at my Occam's razor.
I did.
This is literally what I suggested. It's even on animated No Agenda. That must have pushed you over the edge.
Well, it got me whether their logic was different than yours, and I started reading it, and something what fell on my head, the apple that fell on my head was that, oh, wait a minute, there has to be some reason, some rationale, some reason my original concept that Hillary's going to jump in at the end isn't coming to fruition. This could be it.
Okay. I'm not quite sure how different. So, no, it's still my idea, only now you're just using it to get out.
It wasn't, but I'm just saying that I'm now coming around to thinking, okay, I can see where it could happen. It's a terrible ticket. I mean, it's two people with walkers, running for president. It's pretty bad.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, it's a great...
My hip!
The whole idea is great. Did you... I have a LibDev posting. Did you have any convos with your LibJo friends after the no to witnesses and documents vote, which essentially was a dour moment for many?
No, I didn't. I'm trying to minimize my my approaching. It's like getting to the edge where there's a rift in the dimensional rift.
Yeah.
Is the way I'm seeing these things.
Yes.
And I'm trying not to approach it because I'm still irked about the Putin's calling the shots beliefs.
Oh, well,
it's
only gotten worse.
Well, it could be, but I felt that it's not healthy to get too close to it. So you start to have, it's like this time space continuum, pieces of your anatomy start to dissolve. I mean, it's just dangerous.
Here is a posting from my LibDev friend, and it's titled Epitaph for America. This was posted on Friday. It looks like the impeachment trial will be over tonight. I've been trying to come to grips with how the Repubs, confronted with such clear evidence of the corruption of the president, could go along with it. I figured it had to be blackmail or a threat of force. We now have a Russian-style government, and this is a rite of passage, like the confirmation or bar mitzvah of the new autocracy. In Russia, the parliament has no power. That seems to be the message bouncing around the Twitter sphere. Congress isn't going to do anything about this. What comes next? It's new territory for Americans, really for everyone, because the last time a great power went down, this path was before the internet. And it just goes on and on and on and on.
I wish you'd read a little more.
Well, instead of that, let me... Okay, I have a couple of things. First of all, I learned something completely new after this vote, and I'm very pleased with Chuck Schumer, because not often that I learn something new from Chuck Schumer. And I've met this guy. I interviewed him once, way back in the day, and he's a creep. But I learned a new word. Learned a new word. He came out after the vote of no witnesses, no documents.
Oh, yes, I heard this word too.
Allow a witness, a document. No witnesses, no documents in an impeachment trial is a perfidy.
I was like, what is a perfidy?
Yeah, perfidy, that's kind of an arcane word. I kind of know what it means.
Well, I looked it up. Of course, not disloyalty, faithlessness, falseness. These are all synonyms, of course. But it's an act or an instance of disloyalty is the
deceitful.
So, well, why not just say that? What's this perfidy? That was so odd to me.
Code.
Oh, yeah, it could be code. You're right.
Code.
Well, so there's a couple of paths now that the M5M is taking it. I have a supercuts montage. We always love doing those. So the initial response from the M5M is if you didn't have a witness, if you didn't have documents, even though you have witness testimony and documents from the House impeachment, then it's not an acquittal. It may be an acquittal, but it's certainly not an exoneration.
Well, he will not be acquitted. You cannot be acquitted if you don't have a trial.
The president's acquittal will be meaningless.
This can't be a real acquittal.
You cannot have a true acquittal if you've not had a fair trial.
There cannot be a true acquittal if there's not been a fair trial.
He can say, well, I was acquitted, but he really can't say he was exonerated.
He may get an acquittal, but he's not going to get an exoneration.
It's not an exoneration. We can't let it be seen as that.
I think there'll always be an asterisk.
It should be fair to the president.
will not benefit from an acquittal or dismissal if the trial is not viewed as fair.
It's not a real trial and it's not a real exoneration.
If, in fact, we do have a not guilty finding, it's going to be questioned.
In the absence of a fair trial, how can the American people conclude that justice was done?
After the senators deliberate and vote on trial or sham, you're right. The next step is convict or acquit.
Mr. President, without a fair trial, the value of your acquittal will be zero. Zero. Very, very little.
Okay, so that's shaping the message there from the M5M. Interestingly, over on exclusively MSNBC, on the AM Joy Reid show, she brought on former spook Malcolm Nance, and he just went straight to it, which I find I find to be very, not that a lot of people are watching AM Joy, but this guy is propagating something which is, if it's the way you want to go, it's fine, but when you bring this kind of thing into question, you make it difficult for the whole country, everything. It's just a shitty thing to do.
Well, I think that we are standing into a measure of danger that is going to be extremely, extremely critical for the American Republic. It's not only that Donald Trump is being given permission on the basis of what he's done in the past to go and cheat in this election. This vote next Wednesday, when he is acquitted, will give the entire world permission to attack the United States and perhaps be rewarded for it. So just imagine next November, second Tuesday of next November, it may not be Russia providing political propaganda beyond what they did in 2016. Imagine North Korea loosing their entire global hacking network on the Democratic Party and supporting Donald Trump's reelection. It could be bad.
You know, what if we wake up the night election and we're told Trump won Vermont? How would we even deal with an actual interference in the vote?
Right. I mean, again, a direct attack on the United States where a nation state has decided that they are going to actually hack the results and make it so obvious in such a way that one party, the Republicans, say, well, that's just too bad. That's the result of the election. Donald Trump wins. And the other party is left standing there blinking at a president who now believes he can do anything he wants in the national interest. So, of course, all of our opponents in the global threat arena, that's North Korea, as you said, Saudi Arabia has a very vested interest in keeping Donald Trump in as president of the United States, and they use Israeli, American, and other subcontractors to carry out nefarious hacking and intelligence activities. This nation is going to be under attack cyber-wise, unlike anything that we've seen before. Not just disinformation, but I think we may possibly finally see people put their hands on the thumbs of the scales of American voting machines or tally machines at the state level wherever they can. And it will be sloppy. It will be so obvious that, again, there's nothing we're going to be able to do about it because one side will accept the result.
Wow.
And that's going pretty far. He's and this is a former intelligence guy.
That means, well, he's still under orders. That's probably right from the CIA.
There you go.
And the idea that North Korea is going to unleash its hordes of hackers. What do they got? This is bull crap.
Yeah, but people don't know that. I mean, even the probing of ports, which in the M5M quickly was called thousands of attacks per minute. People, if you ask people on the street, lie witness news, if you say, was the 2016 election hacked? They say, oh yeah, the results were hacked, of course, because that's what they've heard. Not that they actually care that much anymore, but Ted Cruz, Senator Cruz, was on a podcast. Truth always wants to come out, although I don't think his truth is correct, but it was odd.
Isn't this his podcast?
No, he was being interviewed on another podcast. He is a podcast meister now. He will promote.
Well, he invented the podcast.
That's correct, and he will promote his podcast. But he says something else here.
A lot of questions that raised a lot of questions of corruption, and the president, I think, not only was justified but had a responsibility to say, look into this and investigate that corruption. I think that exchange was really important.
Briefly, if President Trump's watching tonight, your message to him.
The Senate's going to follow the law. We've given both sides a fair trial. The House didn't have a fair proceeding. It had a one-sided partisan proceeding. We let both sides present their case. We're going to apply the law. I think by the end of the weekend, the president is going to be convicted. I'll also mention 2 weeks ago, I launched a podcast, A Verdict with Ted Cruz.
Notice the guy asking the question doesn't even correct him. Well, listen again.
Going to be convicted.
Hold on.
We let both sides present their case. We're going to apply the law. I think by the end of the weekend, the president is going to be convicted. I'll also mention 2 weeks ago, I launched a podcast, A Verdict with Ted Cruz.
And you can hear more of this fine information like that, what I just said on my podcast.
Work,
Ted. Oops. Stupid Ted. Okay, so we had that. Then we had... then we had just bitter complaining. Oh, Hakeem Jeffries. He was one of the House managers. And this was actually, I found this to be interesting. This is I think this was Friday, the last Q&A session or the discussion session. And he is answering a question that came, of course, from one of the senators, was slowly walked to the desk to the Justice Roberts, taking up all the valuable airtime. The question is the Steele dossier, could that be considered foreign interference in election? Which, considering it was shepherded by a citizen of the UK and included comments and information from Russians, arguably yes, but Hakeem Jeffries argued it on the floor the opposite way.
Distinguished senators, I thank you for the question. The analogy is not applicable to the present situation because, first, to the extent that opposition research was obtained, it was opposition research that was purchased.
Oh, so,
what?
You didn't see that?
Wow, I missed that one.
I love that one. So no, it's not election interference if you buy the opposition research, but if you're just like scraping it yourself, then clearly that is interfering in an election.
I did get one thing that I wanted to play in that Q&A era.
Yeah.
And this relates to the last show, and this is John Roberts explaining the tiebreaker situation.
Yes, I got that too. Yeah, that's great. I was so happy that he answered that because we didn't really know it was a question that I brought up.
Which is a new piece of information in there I didn't realize.
The Democratic leader will state the inquiry.
Is the Chief Justice aware that in the impeachment trial of President Johnson, Chief Justice Chase, as presiding officer, cast tie-breaking votes on both March 31st and April 2nd, 1868?
I am, Mr. Leader. The one concerned a motion to adjourn. The other concerned a motion to close deliberations. I do not regard those isolated episodes 150 years ago as sufficient to support a general authority to break ties. If the members of this body, elected by the people and accountable to them, divide equally on a motion, the normal rule is that the motion fails. I think it would be inappropriate for me, an unelected official from a different branch of government, to assert the power to change that result so that the motion would succeed.
So 50-50 is a fail.
Is a loser, yeah. And now, I was watching this vote, and I loved how it worked right down to the very last votes. Will it be 50-50? Will it be 41-4? What's it going to be? Could they get two more? I loved how they killed the mic and waited, and it just the tally stood stuck there. That was a good dramatic moment. Although they forgot the confetti, because every show ends with a confetti fountain. But learned some new things. Where is it here? Sorry about that. Now, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, here it is. What they were counting on the Democrats were counting on Murkowski from Alaska. They thought that she would be one of those votes that could now, in this case, it would have still been 50-50, so it would have been a loser. And, Mitt Romney, being the hero that he is, he voted for the witnesses and documents. I think, looking back, at Murkowski, I think in an odd way, although it wouldn't have made a difference because it would have been 50-50 and thus a loser, although I'm sure we could have argued and had hearings about that for another month. I think it was Sarah Palin that actually helped swing this vote in the way that it did. Because she threatened Murkowski that if she voted to impeach Trump or do anything of the like to remove him, that she would run for her seat in Alaska, which I think Murkowski was actually kind of worried about.
It could happen. And I think that would probably have some. Murkowski herself claimed that the reason she did it is because she saw that there's just a bunch of politicization of the whole process, and it was just used to embarrass the president, and there's no purpose in it. And so she refused to take part in that, so she took the side of the Republicans, although she could have had other reasons. I found the one thing that was the kind of the argument for the no witnesses that came up on the Republican side. One of the president's lawyers gave this little spiel, which was not one bit of it. And I thought this was a pretty good argument, because he argues here that the reason that we're not going to go anywhere with this is because there's nothing to it to begin with. And that is not even discussed by the mainstream media. So I wanted to play it. So this is the argument for no witnesses.
So this idea that they haven't had witnesses that's the smokescreen. You've heard from a lot of witnesses. The problem with the case, the problem with their position is, even with all of those witnesses, it doesn't prove up an impeachable offense. The articles fail. I think it's very dangerous if the House runs up, which they did, articles of impeachment quickly. So quickly that they are clamoring for evidence, despite the fact that they put all of this evidence forward. They got their wish of an impeachment by Christmas. That was the goal. But now they want you to do the work they failed to do. But as I said, time and time again we heard, you didn't hear from witnesses, you didn't hear from many witnesses. Mr. Schiff modified that a little bit today. A little bit. You heard from a lot of witnesses. But if we go down the road of witnesses, this is not a one-week process. Remember I talked about the waving the wand and corruption in Ukraine was gone. You're not going to have a witness wand here where we just say, okay, you got a week to do this and get it done. There's no way that would be proper under due process. But due process is supposed to be for the person accused. And they are turning it on its head. They brought the articles before you. They're the ones that rushed the case up and then held it before you could actually start the proceedings. But they're the ones that passed the articles before Christmas. We talked a lot about the court system and the fact that they were seeking witnesses. And when it got close to actually having a court proceeding, they decided that they didn't want to have that witness go through that proceeding. They actually withdrew the subpoena to moot the case out. How many constitutional challenges will we have in this body because they placed a burden on you that they wouldn't take themselves in putting their case forward? If we look at our constitutional framework and our constitutional structure, that's not the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, this was very irritating to a lot of the senators, and there's a term for it, which the senator from Hawaii, Mazie Hirono, coined when she was interviewed.
This is a president who already we know he has very few constraints on his behavior, and there will be even fewer. He will be running around saying that he has been exonerated. No, he has been let off the hook by the Republicans who are not going to vote for his conviction, but he is not going to be set free by the American people, I hope, who get that this was not a fair trial with no witnesses, no documents, total stonewalling by the president. And I don't care what kind of nice little legal constitutional defenses that they came up with, all in my view in bad faith.
I don't care about your nice little constitutional legal tricks. I don't care about that constitutional thing. Hey, Hawaii.
That's dynamite.
Aloha, Hawaii. Vote her out. Get that woman out of here. Vote her out. Aloha. Aloha, Hawaii. Before we do anything else, I want to say Happy Black History Month, which really should be ADOS History Month. And you can always remember when it's Black History Month because it's the shortest month and one of the coldest. That's the way we roll in America. However, something really nice happened that we're happy with. The United States Postal Service has come out with a Black Heritage Forever stamp of Gwen Ifill.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I think is really nice. And we, for all the crap we gave her,
broadcasters get stamps.
Well, it's a good question. I don't know. It's great. It's the typical Gwen Ifill publicity shot, headshot, and it's a forever stamp. And we miss Gwen in hindsight when this is something to be learned for ourselves.
When Gwen was there. She made it, apparently it was her, because once she left, it ended. She made sure that the PBS NewsHour was objective, and it wasn't like crazy like it is now, where they won't listen to anybody's other side of the story. Yeah. You have two people on, they're supposed to be debating, but they're both in total agreement on everything. Yeah. It's really, really bad.
So we miss Gwen, and I'm very happy that she's honored in this small way, but shoot, I'd take it. I'd take a stamp. When I'm dead. In fact, I'll take that over a plaque. Give me a stamp. It's perfect forever stamp.
You're not getting a stamp.
And with that, I'd like to thank you for your courage and say in the morning to you, the man who put the C in the caucuses of Iowa, John C.
Well, in the morning to you, Mr. Adam Curry. In the morning to all ships at sea, boots on the ground, feet in the air, subs in the water, and all the dames and knights out there.
In the morning to the trolls in the troll room. Let's do a quick count. We got 1,381. It's on the upper end. That's a lot of trolls. Hey, trolls. NoAgendaStream.com is where you can join your fellow trolls, not just on show days, which is Thursday and second Thursdays, but 24/7. There's always someone in there. I pop in all the time. Just say, hey, see what's going on. People are watching watching what's going on in the news. They're listening to whatever podcast may be rolling. We do have a lot of live ones. It's a great place to hang out. And soon to be new and improved, NoAgendaStream.com is pretty bare bones right now. But the chat room, or as we call it, the troll room, is really the place to be. In the morning as well, to Darren O'Neill. Once again, Darren hit it on the head with the artwork for episode 1212. We titled that one 5 Bidens and broke a rule. We don't only one person caught it that mentioned it, at least.
Somebody caught it. Well,
yeah, on Twitter. We try to. We have three elements of post-production for the show. We have the title for the show. We have the artwork, and we have the opening clip. And we actually look for the opening clip first. Then we go for the artwork. Then we go for the title. And 5 Bidens was just a good title. It's a very no agenda title. We tried a couple others, but we had already kind of settled on the mixing panel or the mixing module for Joe Biden, clearly run by his sound guy. Reverb all the way up, distortion all the way up. I didn't personally, in hindsight, I think the dishonesty dial was funny, but I don't think Joe is really dishonest. He's just out of it. That
could have been.
It gave off a political message that I didn't think was necessary.
If that was at 5, it would probably be more accurate.
Yeah, if it had been half a notch. But still, Darren O'Neill nailed it, and we'd really appreciate it. There were some other ones that we looked at. I can't remember exactly what some of the objections were. What was the other? There was one other one we liked, which
I think there was. Well, let's go back and look.
Actually, I'm seeing things. Oh, the Nigel Farage with the head inside the European Union stars.
Oh, yeah, I like that one. And then we both, or I think Adam noticed before I did, but it was not centered. It was kind of thrown slapdash.
It was the right idea, but execution just didn't quite make it. So
yeah, especially when you had to if you can compare it to the O'Neill piece, which was extremely high end.
Yeah, it was.
And very precise.
But we appreciate the work that all of our artists do. Thank you so much. Again,
and we like to do these analysis, I should mention, to give the artists some
feedback,
insight into how we do it to begin with, so you can cheat the system. Seriously,
it truly is a fact that less is often more, And it's got to pop. We all know it's got to pop. It's got to pop because we want to stand out amongst that huge row of podcasts. And whenever the art changes, it's noticeable. It's just another way people are reminded that there is still a best podcast in the universe, and that's the one you want to tap on, click on, etc. Yes. NoAgendaArtGenerator.com, part of our value for value model, where everybody contributes in one form or the other. Sometimes it's an intelligence analyst wishing to remain anonymous, but giving us deep inside analysis of things that he is already looking or she is already looking at. It's an artist. It can be, you heard 4 coronavirus jingles in a row. That's the value for value model right there. We also need to pay bills, and thank goodness we have a lot of producers who can contribute monetarily. We like to credit the ones $200 and above as our associate executive producers, and $300 and above as our executive producers for each episode. We also mentioned them earlier on, just like a Hollywood production. Although you get the title, but you just don't get all the cool perks. There's no limo, no Four Seasons dinner, and no hookers.
Anonymous starts us off with a nice 1212 donation, which may have been from the last show.
Probably, but holy macaroni.
Anonymous, NJNK, which is about as easy as it comes.
Well, thank you very much, Anonymous. That was it. So no jingles, no karma, just wow.
No name, no nothing.
And this is a special day. I may want to reiterate that we have this super palindrome going on, which it's the 33rd day of the year. There's 333 days to go because it's a leap year. It's a palindrome 02022020 in any country, in the ISO format, or it won't happen for another 900 years?
Yeah, 900 years. Well, it doesn't address that. This is the last week's number, 1212.
No, I know, but I'm already moving on to what we'll see later on in our donation segment, in the segment here.
Next is Randall Scheibel, you think?
Yeah, Scheibel. Scheibel.
Oh, yeah, Scheibel. Looks like an L. Somerville, Massachusetts. 333.69. Jingle request, Goat Karma, China's Asshole, and I Love Bugs. ITM, John and Adam, thank you for your courage and for making the greatest podcast in the universe. With this donation, I become a knight.
Whoa.
I'd like to be called Sir Scheibel. My friend Mary, who has been a long-time listener, needs to be called out for being a douchebag.
Okay, you can do that.
Douchebag. Also got a birthday coming up on February 4th. I'm turning 26. Assume he's on the list. Check it out. Adam, you converted me to the OTG life.
Okay.
I thank you every day for the sanity that alone has brought me.
Well, you're so welcome. Outstanding. I'd like to know how OTG are you. Let us know. It's always interesting. And here's what you requested.
China is asshole. I love
bugs. Tastes like poop.
You've got karma.
And we'll see you at the round table, Sir Scheibel, to be.
Next is Thomas Hithuller, 321.
He's from Austria.
Dear John and Adam, I'm sending... Sorry?
I think he's from Austria.
Yeah, Austria is from Austria. What did I say? Did I say
I just jumped in and just inserted myself. I'm sorry.
I'm sending you a countdown donation in appreciation of the services you provide. Austria is a great country. People should visit it. You provided me over the years, my amygdala being the main beneficiary, but this donation also comes with some critique.
Oh.
My last karma request did not produce the intended results. After considering the possibilities for this failure, I was left with the realization that my donation amount was too low for the requested service. So I upped the ante to try again. Please send some extra potent new human resource karma to me and my smoking hot wife. Eat pizza. The fun life has to end at some point, right? Time to get settled and serious. But before that, and as usual, can we get the shape-shifting Jews? Keep up the good work with all the best from Austria, Sir Thomas, the unbelieving knight.
Okay, so what I think and I don't think it has anything to do with the donation amount per se, but I think you need a Swazelnuff karma. which is an old one, which really only pertained to a certain donation amount. So I will play that for you with the karma. It'll be the Swazilnov karma. That should work.
Step right this way. Roll up for the shape-shifting Jew.
69. You've got karma.
Now, if that doesn't work, then I don't know what will.
Well, who knows? Joseph Pinto in Atlanta, Georgia, comes in as the first associate executive producer at 233.33. I'm broke. Requesting jobs karma. Joseph. Also, call out Philip. Hit me in the mouth after listening to Twit for being a douchebag. Douchebag. All right.
I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop real quick, John. What network are you on? Because I'm getting the.
Yeah, call me back. This has been going on since the beginning.
Yes. Okay. So you're hearing it too. Okay.
Well, you could let the connection reset a little bit.
What do you mean? Disconnect is disconnect.
Yeah, but you disconnected and I was connected. You connected right back within a millisecond.
Okay, goodbye.
That's better.
I thought so. Okay. And I still have to do the jobs karma. So hold on for that, and I shall insert later. We'll fix it in post.
Jobs, 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 and jobs. Let's vote for jobs.
You've got karma.
All right, man. Hope that works out, Joseph.
So now I have an issue with the next donation.
Okay.
Now, this person, who I won't mention at the moment, asked for me to read an anonymous note. But he never said anything about being anonymous, but I'm making him anonymous.
Okay.
For the purposes of his note, which I won't be able to read otherwise.
Wait a minute. How do you... Oh, okay. This is not... Okay, all right. Go.
I'll read this. I'm going to read this. I'll read you the note from the beginning. You tell me how I'm supposed to do this.
Okay.
Gentlemen, I'm sending this anonymous note.
Okay, stop.
To accompany my 202.
Stop. Nothing fixed on the callback on the Skype. It's just as bad. It's going to be Thursdays. Are you on Comcast?
Yeah, I'm sure I am.
Check.
Oh, you know what it could be? It could be that setting you keep telling me about.
Oh.
Especially if it's on my side coming over.
Could be. The Skype auto.
You stopped tape?
Yeah, I stopped tape.
I'm more inclined to think it's that than it is the network. The other network's not as good.
Well, you said you were hearing it.
No, I was hearing cutouts from you. It was cut just every so often. It'd be a cutout. It wasn't so bothersome. I wanted to do a reconnect, but I might not be hearing that anymore. The problem is because they've changed this interface. Is finding these settings. Okay, let me look. I hate what they've done. Oh, here. So, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm jiggling the handle. It usually helps.
Yeah, usually. Let's see. Oh. This is hilarious.
Not really.
It is to me.
It's a huge break in the show, man.
Well, we could have started early. It's not on.
What the fuck does that even mean? Could have started early. Okay.
So it sucks. So I have to reconnect to the other network.
Well, let's try, because this one just keeps jumping out, just keeps crunching out.
It's crunching out. It's not dropouts.
Well, do you want to hear what it sounds like?
No, I don't care. I'm going to switch now.
All right.
The shape-shifting Jew. Okay, here we go. Well, that's interesting. Nobody it here, and I'll kill this. I'll be gone for a minute.
All right. It's seamless.
Boom.
Seamless.
My back.
Yeah, you're back.
Well, I made a beeping sound. Wasn't totally seamless.
Do you hear me? You hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sound good.
Yeah, that sounds okay. Hold on, excuse me. Okay, so I think we're okay there.
Well, we'll see.
Okay, hold on.
We'll have let's see. At one, we'll see. There'll be a moment where it just dies every once an hour.
But that's better than every 10 seconds. So just give me a second. Let me, hold on. Let me turn the cassette tape over. Okay, and...
Are you using metal tape?
Dolby.
Dolby's not the tape.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's the MX.
You don't know what you're doing.
TDK MX metal. You can pick it up from Anonymous Note, I guess, somewhere like that.
So I'm just going to read you the note, and then you can tell me how I'm supposed to handle this. It's too late now. But gentlemen, I'm sending this anonymous note to accompany my 202.50 donation by check. My request is a plug for a podcast I produce for a dear friend of mine. In fact, I think it's a show that your respective wives would enjoy. It's Size Queen Love.
Size Queen Love?
Well-endowed men and the women who love them.
I'm sure the keeper's already subscribed.
Find it online at sizequeenlove.com, and thanks for continuing to deliver high-quality shows for your producers.
All right, so I guess we just put Size Queen Love as the producer credit in this case, or anonymous.
Well, probably be anonymous. Well, either one, I don't care.
I like Size Queen Love as a producer credit. That's kind of cool. Yeah,
onward with Sir Mark, Duke of Japan, and all of the disputed islands in the Japan Sea. 20220. And this is going to be our group of 20220s, which are the commemorative amount. Dear John and Adam, the perfect date to donate $20 to $200, $2.20. Thank you for always making sense of our world and being the only news source we trust. It's not often that we want to plug something for the producers of No Agenda, but here it comes. Yes, we are the architects really, but 2020 is a big year for us as our Pechakucha 20 by 20 show and tell format, which Dame Astrid and I devised, is based on showing 20 images. Yes, they do this. This is one of the things they do.
This is a worldwide thing. This is not just in Japan. They've had
they're big on this. This is their thing.
Big is their big thing. This is their No Agenda is Pechakucha.
Pechakucha. Okay, you show 20 images, was auto forward for 20 seconds each. We started in Tokyo in 2003, and Pechakucha nights have spread around the world to over 1,200 cities with over 100 events each month. Just like No Agenda, we run it on a value for value model, and that's why it's spread far and wide. The number of parallels with No Agenda are unbelievable, especially now that the No Agenda meetups are growing globally. People simply love getting together. On the 20th of February, 2020, we'll be holding our international Pechakucha. It's actually the 20th of this month. Pechakucha Day in 100 cities, and we are hope to have 1,000 presentations and will be made around the world. Then check out what we're up to at, here we go, IPK2020.com. IPK2020.com. Anyone can find an event near them or make a presentation online with our new Create platform. Just upload 20 images, voice, and share. Pechakucha. You and No Agenda are...
Oh, come on. Put your soul into it, man.
Pechakucha. You and No Agenda are family. So here's the next 20. Thank you for your courage, Sir Mark, Duke of the Japan, all the disputed islands in the Japan Sea, and no jingles, no karma.
Yeah, this Pechakucha, I have successfully been able to miss twice in Austin. Once because there was flooding. Believe it or not, the whole event was flooded out. But it's a phenomenon. The Pechakucha is a big deal. And it's just fun to say. A Pechakucha. Come over here. I'll pet your coochie with that. Do you pet your coochie your mom with that?
It's got to be better than the TED Talks. Let's put it that way.
Well, and thank you. You're making a great point. And TED Talks and there's all this, crazy stuff that what you can and can't do. I don't think there's any rules for pet your coochie. Just 20 by 20 and roll with it. So it's great. They're doing good work. Wow. So we heard from Sir Mark and Dame Astrid in one show. That's nice.
Yeah. John Grumling's next, $202.20. This is my annual donation, and the palindrome made it a little more fun. No karma or anything, since that usually doesn't work out for me anyway. Thanks for all you do.
well, there's something to be said for knowing what it does or doesn't do. Thank you very much, John.
No.
Thank you.
Anonymous 2020. Adam and John, as it happens, I'm turning 33 on this 33rd day of 2020, which is, of course, 2-2. I would like to make sure I'm on the right side of karmic palindromic dimensional wormhole today. So here's some value for value. I could use some job startup karma, and here's to hoping the auspicious birthday / palindrome has a multiplier effect on said karma. For jingles, maybe just some angelic initiatives of choice.
Yep.
Just for good measure. Yes, and keep up the good work. 73s.
Yeah, 73s. Kilo 5. Alpha Charlie. And here you go.
You're the president.
Oops. That's not what I wanted. I wanted the nice little ISO. That's what we wanted.
That's true. Jobs, 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 and jobs. Let's vote for jobs.
You've got karma.
Dame Laura, the Snowy Cascades, 2020. No jingles, no karma. And then she writes, "Go Chiefs!"
Yeah, go Chiefs! Today is the big day. I'm very excited about the Super Bowl. I love, the more
what?
Well, because I'm in such conflict. We have I know that I was thinking the Chiefs will win, and then because of the racist nature of their name, and that'll bring it to the forefront, and then I thought, well, no, wait a minute, it's got to be the 49ers because they have the first, they have a female coach, not the head coach, but female coach, and she's queer or gay or lesbian, whatever it is, which doesn't matter, but. And then all of a sudden, the Chiefs quarterback was wearing a Trump Kanye sweatshirt. So I'm like, wow, is it the San Francisco Nancy Pelosi's versus the Kansas City Trumpy Chiefs? And I'm like, I'm not sure which way it's going to go. And then I see, the real news is out that the Super Bowl will feature women owners on each side for the first time in history. So it's got to be the 49ers, even though I really despise your team and California and everything about it.
Well, let's go to another source. We don't have his donation today, even though I think he sent one in, but it didn't come in on time. It was over the limit. But for obvious reasons, this is Fugazoto. Or Earl.
Yeah.
He says, he goes on about these octopuses, emotional support octopus, and he has one of the, I thought it was for one of the teams, but then I looked closer and I see, he says, "Go Chefs."
Go Chefs.
So I guess it's the food service people
they're going to
win. So go Chefs.
I mean, I will be rooting for the Chiefs, but I really think that the fix is in for the 49ers. And
you're going to have the Chiefs both teams are fun to watch. And the curious thing is the Chiefs offense is fun to watch and the 49ers defense is fun to watch. So it'll be fun to watch. It'll be a fun game to watch. Both teams, here's another, since we're talking about it, both teams, the coaches on both teams have a history of choking, which makes it really interesting because the big guy on the Chiefs, Andy Reid's the coach, and he's a big fat guy, and he was in the Super Bowl before, and they lost, and it was a choke job. And then the 49ers head coach was the guy. He was he wasn't the head coach, but he was the offensive coordinator, I believe, in the Atlanta game when they played the Patriots, and it was the biggest choke job in the history of the Super Bowl. So we have two guys that are potential massive choke artists playing against each other. Something's got to give.
Who will choke the hardest?
We'll find out later today. Onward with Sir Woody of the Falls in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, $202.20. Merry Groundhog Day, something else we forgot about.
Yeah.
At 4:35 p.m., I will complete my 73rd revolution around the old sun.
Yay. Congratulations.
On this eventful day, I would like to express my gratitude for all you do. The world just wouldn't be right without the No Agenda Show.
Oh.
Thank you very much from this old geezer on his birthday, Sir Woody of the Falls.
Hey, well,
Sioux Falls.
Sir Woody, you're not old. You're still perfectly fine to be president, so you could be the leader of the free world. I wouldn't.
Maybe too young to be president.
Yeah, exactly. Don't put yourself down too much. And thank you very much for supporting us. That is incredibly appreciated.
And he's got a birthday.
Yes.
Ono Priester in Soest. $202.02. That's Netherlands. Celebrating 02/02/220202, the day that my youngest human resource celebrates her 22nd birthday. As she is now looking at next steps in her education, a special goat karma for her would be much appreciated. Thanks again for the infosainment. That's one we don't use enough. Infosainment, the best podcast in the universe, gives me. Unlike in my youth, the 2 Sundays a week are something to look forward to. A few karmas would be much appreciated. I'm sure this will also help to contain the Chinese plague from spreading. And before I forget, Epstein didn't kill himself.
You've got karma.
I should mention later in the show, I'm going to have some testimony from the Weinstein case.
Yeah.
That will curl your hair.
Yeah. I love it. Yes. It will curl your hair and other things.
Ugh. Sir Silver Dude of the Silver Dolphins, 20202, in Severn, Maryland. I'd like to order an order of Stop the Hammering and Goat Karma for all who need it. Now, I am no numerologist, but 02022020 looks pretty cool to me. After realizing I missed donating in January, I felt obliged to correct the error. Also, I retired from the Navy last February after 20 years of some work, lots of waiting, and lots of doses of mandatory fun. I'll look for more examples of the Magic 20 to freak me out. Keep it wacky.
Yeah, congratulations, Sir Silver Dude. That's nice. Well deserved.
Stop the hammering!
You've got karma.
Sorry, he needed a goat karma. Redo.
You've got
there you go.
Karma.
Now we're rocking and rolling.
Trevor Davidson, 20202, from Calgary, Alberta. Greetings from Calgary, Scandinavia. I got hit in the mouth a year or two ago from a friend. At first, I was fearful that it was a podcast that was just a right-wing conspiracy outlet to defend Trump. I stuck with it and realized that when you deconstruct media and all they talk about is Orange Man bad, it can't seem that way.
Exactly.
Seeing how the media operates has been an eye-opener and scary, since they are still deemed trustworthy. Not by us. If any of the dames and knights out there know of an outlet doing the same deconstruction thing here in Canada, that would be great to hear.
Yeah, I would say the Rebel. The Rebel comes pretty. Yeah.
The Rebel.
The Rebel comes very close.
Yeah.
Rebel's
the Rebel. There's good material on the Rebel.
For sure.
We're getting pretty divided up here, and when the PM gifts what he deems good media $600 million, it creates ... questions.
I actually have a clip about that for later.
Good.
Yeah.
Anyways, after hearing the horse race, I knew it was time to do the get de-douched.
You've been de-douched.
And get some karma working for the new company that just started with some friends. I could request some goat karma followed by a Klobuchar. Think that sounds pretty good. And finally, it's true.
I have to say, the Amy, that sounds pretty good. That's become our new. We've dropped "that's true" from our vocabulary here at home, and now everything is, "Hey, ready for dinner?" It's like, that sounds pretty good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that.
More idiotic.
I think that sounds pretty good.
That's true. You've got karma.
Shoot, goat karma. I screwed it up again. Everyone's asking for goat karma today. I'll do it again then.
You've got karma.
Better than doing it over.
I wonder what these double doses are going to do. William Bagden in Conshohocken. I can't pronounce this city. It's $200 from him, and he's in Pennsylvania.
It's Conshohocken. Conshohocken, yeah, something like that.
Gesundheit. I've been man overboard for a while, but I can't ignore that the coronavirus contains the magic number of A, nucleotides, bioinformatics, stackexchange.com. What?
Yeah, well, this is what we discussed. It has the DNA, the genetic code has 33 A's at the end.
Yes. We did.
Well, of course. I mean, we have not ignored that. We discussed it immediately.
We talked about it in the last show.
And it's obvious. It means something is up.
Something is up. And no jingles, no karma, looks like, from William.
That's fine.
Jason Gray's last on the list in North Glen, Colorado at $200. Love the show. I may not make it to knighthood, as Kung Flu will undoubtedly lead to martial law, forced vaccinations, and the collapse of the economy. Will all be OTG. Shout out to the open eyes that hit me in the mouth. Claude and Tiger, LJ and Stryker. Any small business karma would be appreciated as I venture into a new field.
You've got karma.
And that is our list of associate executive producers and executive producers, although I'm probably going to include Eric from Stockholm up in the list, because it looks like there could be a amount of money that didn't translate.
Something got lost in the Euro translation,
and so we probably push him up. But
unless does he have a note or not?
He has no note. Well, I'll go look on the email in the next segment. But there's no reason for the 199. It's not anonymous, and it doesn't make sense.
Maybe he just I don't know. Who knows what it is? But anyway.
I eschew the executive producership.
Thank you very much to our associate and our straight-up executive producers. A good showing for today. Thanks for participating in the magic number of the palindrome. It makes everybody feel good. It's a great number, and you help your podcast continue to be produced, and that is highly appreciated. And we'll be thanking more people in our second segment coming up later on. Remember, we are here twice a week on Thursdays or Sundays, alternatively, but we're here. We're always here, and we're here because we love doing the best podcast in the universe with you, and you can support us for our next show, which will be on Thursday. All you do is go to
Dvorak.org/NA.
Pretty sure you're up to speed on all things Wuhan flu.
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth.
Order. Shut up, slave. Shut up, slave.
There's one other element of the Wuhan flu thing. I didn't get a clip of it. It was a local thing. I just missed it. Apparently, they're flying these drones. Have you seen these videos?
No.
They're flying these drones around Wuhan.
Yeah.
And the drones have loudspeakers on them. And the drones fly up, they fly over your head, and they start yelling at you if you don't wear a mask.
Oh.
And they show one where apparently they yell at some little kid who didn't know what the hell was going on. He runs down the street scared to death.
Wow. No, I have not seen these videos. I did want to just jump in on what our producer said. Who was it who was talking about the $600 million? Yes, that was Trevor from Calgary. So I just clipped this morning from the Rebel, actually, who was complaining about this, about a new policy paper that has come out about elections in Canada. And actually, the title of it is Canadian Government Wants to Regulate Internet Media, according to a cabinet advisory panel who released this, advisory paper as to what the Canadian government should do to protect its citizens. from horrible disinformation. And Canada does have a constitutional clause about freedom of speech and freedom of expression and in fact, I think it expressly states freedom to use all media to communicate your message, which would include podcasts and YouTube, etc. So I chopped it down a bit. This is Ezra Levant from The Rebel discussing this very interesting case in Canada.
The word regulate appears 54 times in their report. 54, of course it did. Like this. We recommend that the CRTC regulate certain internet media content undertakings. Oh, really? Really? Of course you do. Let me give you an example of one of their proposals. In an increasingly connected society, an appropriate balance should be struck between maintaining a free and open space for the exchange of ideas and information, respecting and protecting individual and collective rights and freedoms, and not further marginalizing Canadians from diverse social locations. At the core of the challenges posed by harmful content is the question of the rights and responsibilities of digital intermediaries for the accuracy or appropriateness of information that is distributed on or shared via their platforms and any related social harms that may be caused. Hang on. I mean, I know the Charter of Rights. It has a section called Fundamental Freedoms, and it says everyone has the following fundamental freedoms. It's granted to me as an individual: freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of thought, etc. So how are they going to do this? How are they going to regulate the internet? Well, they want the government to decide. A strong, financially stable, and independent news sector that delivers diverse, accurate, trusted, and reliable sources of news to Canadians through a variety of media is essential to the health of democracy and to an engaged citizenry. It is also necessary to counter the spread of misinformation facilitated by communications technologies. This section focuses on ensuring that Canadians have access to a wide range of accurate, reliable, and trusted sources of Canadian news. They're certain of their truth. My point is, who is telling the truth and who is lying and everything in between? Well, that's ours as individuals to figure out. It's part of life. But this Trudeau handpicked panel wants to make determinations for you by using the government.
That's right. That's right. So that's what you're looking at, Canada. It's just like the UK, man. You don't actually have free speech, and we're getting very close to being shut down here as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not really shut down, but, you know, we don't quite have the government. Well, we actually do have the government saying we can't have dishonest ads for political ads. That can't happen. As if not every politician lies one way or the other.
Let's talking about lying and that sort of thing. This might get into a couple of clips I've been wanting to play. Well, it would be nice if I had the right sheet of paper. Somehow I moved it. Yeah, go on with your next thing.
Okay, well.
Oh, here it is. Nope, it's not it either. I'm falling apart.
Yeah, you are. Well, I was going to play something that it's actually kind of related to the donation segment in our value for value model. So I'll do that here now while you're looking for it. This is a quick clip. Dr. Mark Hyman. Is he on the show The Doctors? Maybe he's definitely a TV show doctor, and he relates a story about how incredibly corrupt television is, specifically it's incredibly corrupt in general. But this one example was interesting to me because of something that I witnessed and participated in 35 years ago, and this is about the inherent dishonesty of television media, in this case, a health-related show, when it comes to sponsors, advertisers, or native ads not being disclosed.
I can tell you a story from the past because the show's not on the air anymore. Sure. It was the Martha Stewart show. And I was on the show, and we were working with a producer, and we were talking about getting healthy and working out and detoxing, and Martha had her trainer there. And the producer says, well, we're going to have to do a bit as part of the segment on dairy and how dairy is such a great sports recovery drink. No way. Yes. And so I was like, I'm just sorry to tell you, but there's all this evidence that that's not true. So I downloaded all the scientific papers documenting the science behind the fact that dairy isn't a sports drink. And he's like, I know, but we kind of have to because this spot is sponsored by the Dairy Council. Oh, my gosh. And then the if you're ever on television, you know that the experts don't get notes. They don't get cue cards. They don't get teleprompters. They have to know their stuff. Well, this woman, who was the trainer, had all these cue cards that was being held up about dairy with all the bullet points of why dairy is such a great food and sports drink. It's insidious. So we think we're getting news. We're thinking getting authentic
from experts too, from doctors or specialists or experts, and we are influenced by these experts.
Huge. I mean, the evidence is so clear that the industry is heavily funding science.
Well, I don't know if we call it science, but I heard this, and it surprises nobody, but I wanted to relate a story that happened to me 35 years ago with the Dutch Dairy Council. When I was doing the television show in the Netherlands, I was just 20. I started when I was 19. I was just 20. And a decision was made, and I wasn't really clued into it in the beginning. It's, you're going to do this, for every interview you do, we're going to put a glass of milk here, and the guest typically had a Coke or a beer or whatever, or a glass of wine. And it would just be on the table, and then at a certain point, the producer said, "Yeah, could you take a drink of that during the interview?" I'm like, "Wait a minute!" So they literally wanted me to take a drink of milk while I'm interviewing Mick Jagger. So Mick Jagger's answering a question, and then I take a drink of milk, which is they cut to me full frame. And so I said, "Hey," and this was still on a public broadcast television, so it was clearly not entirely legal, or it was
it sounds illegal.
And I said, "What is going on here?" And they said, "Would you like a new car?" And I said, "Yes." And that was the end of the conversation. And I drank milk during interviews for 2 years, nonstop. And I have no idea how much they were getting from the Dairy Council.
But you got a car? Did you get a car?
Yeah, I did. I got a it was brand new, but it was a Volvo 480 ES. I don't think they make it anymore. It's one of the first Volvo sports cars, which, yes, indeed, is an oxymoron. Or it's a contradiction in terms at best. So
you said that little car, that was pretty cool.
So that's been going on for decades and decades and decades. And that's why we love doing this show here, because it's
we don't have
pretty damn honest.
We don't get the hookers or the free cars or nothing.
No. We get some CBD solve. we get nice gifts from our producers, spices.
Yeah, we do. Bumper stickers.
Yeah, bumper stickers, cool stuff.
Hats. We get some hats.
Mm-hmm. All right, did you find what you were looking for?
That brings me to the kind of just the opposite end of the spectrum, where the media is so dumb they don't even know what's real, what's not. I want to play a couple of clips. The Sun newspaper has a guy, Liam Evans, who does these interviews with all kinds of people. He's had Farage and all of these guys on there. But this is Andrew Doyle. Andrew Doyle is a comic, but it's a very serious comic on this interview. And he's the guy who does that fake character. What's her name? Is I think Miriam something. Tatiana McGrath, I think's the name. And if you were on Twitter, you run into this Tatiana McGrath.
Oh yeah, the spoof account. Yeah, I got you.
It's a spoof account, and he plays her, and she is a liberal. Kind of a lib-jo type, and she says all these dumb stuff.
It's very entertaining to watch, yes.
It's very entertaining to read. Yeah. But here's this guy talking about Brexit and some other things, and these two clips, the second clip it really applies to what you just played, but let's play clip one.
The causes of anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-homophobia, anti-transphobia, all of that kind of stuff. These are good causes that virtually everyone gets on board with, right? So we're talking about a minority of social justice activists have so much power. That's the problem with them, is that if it were just a few people on Twitter mouthing off, right, I wouldn't care about that. It is a minority, but they seem to have infected all the sort of major institutions in the country, right? So they're there in the quangos, right? To whom the government outsources all kinds of authority. They're there in the law. They're there in education. They're certainly there in the media. They're 100% there in the arts. They totally dominate comedy and the arts and drama and TV. So when you have a small group of people who come generally from very bourgeois backgrounds, a very sort of privileged people, talking about how oppressed they are, but running everything, that's kind of funny. So it's quite a good idea to mock that, because I think that personally I like to punch up in comedy. You know, there's all this stuff about punching up and punching down, right? And I like to punch up. I like to attack those in power, and this is where the debate lies. You see, so the people who don't like what I do will say that I punch down at minority groups, even though minority groups are never the target, right? So that's just kind of a basic misinterpretation, but quite a common one. But I'm sort of attacking those who would patronise the minority groups, those who want to try and engineer society in the way that they want, those who have a complete intolerance to any kind of dissent, any kind of alternative viewpoint, any kind, even to sort of basic discussion of principle, you know.
So what he's talking about there is how the social justice wars have taken over everything, which is why our show gets attention, is because we're not part of that group. But they run the media, this is John Legend.
Well, it's not just John Legend, it's Sleeping Giants, it's the cancel culture, and it's very frightening for big brands in particular, because they don't quite know exactly if the tweet storm or wherever it's going to, and I think it typically is on Twitter because that's part of the mainstream media machine, really. It's quoted the most and the journalists are all on there. So and you can still go look at Fox News, you can look at Tucker Carlson. He's still running MyPillow.com ads. And it's amazing that he's on maybe he took a pay cut or something, because they are not making the money they need to make. And that's purely because none of the pharmaceuticals, none of the other big brands want to advertise on his show, because all they get is the tweet storm of people saying, "Oh, you're evil, you must be Nazis." And big brands walk away from it. It is an unfortuitous addition to my statement that you can't monetize the network for this very reason, for cancel culture.
Well, it doesn't happen to us. So this guy who's a character decided to write an op-ed and sent it into the Telegraph or the Express.
Oh, beautiful. Under a pseudonym, of course.
Under a pseudonym. And it was about how comics should be, there should be special laws against hate speech in comedy clubs. And apparently they took it hook, line, and sinker, and other people started writing about this in agreement.
It's already in Prime Minister question time, I'm sure.
And then, so here's this part. This is very funny if you listen to the details.
Now, you wrote a fantastic article for The Independent that was completely out there, and they published it you submitted it under not your name. Can you talk a bit about that and why you think so many people fall for Titania McGrath being real?
So you're talking about an article by Liam Evans, which is for The Independent. Yes. So Liam Evans submitted an article. Liam Evans doesn't exist. And it was obviously a hoax, like so clearly a hoax. What he was saying was that comedians need to be subject to hate speech laws, and he gave a couple of examples and said, basically the police ought to get involved. Now, this is such a kind of maddeningly authoritarian stance that, if I were working at The Independent, I would look at that and think, well, this is not real, is it? This is made up. This is someone trying to hoax us. But the fact that they published it because they agreed with the sentiment, right? That's what it exposed. It also exposed the kind of the lack of any kind of background check. This was a complete unknown, someone with no online presence,
critical thinking skills.
So nothing there. All it is they wanted to push a woke agenda, right? And it's just that in that article, which is still online, if you take the fourth letter of every sentence, it spells out Titania McGrath wrote this, you gullible hacks. Now, I'm not suggesting they should have spotted that, but the article in of itself was so obviously made up. And of course, the point of this, I know some people accused or suggested that the point of this was to try and suggest that this is sort of widespread view, that this widespread sort of intolerance to comedy and this widespread sort of puritanism when it comes to comedy. There is that. I don't think it's as widespread as people think, but it's there. But actually the target of that satire was the media, was the woke media, who absolutely will just go along with absolutely anything with no thought, just sort of blindly push an agenda, and so it worked. But have a look at the art. It's ludicrous. It's utterly stupid. And saying that, ever since then, there's been a few articles that have come out that have been even worse.
Yeah. Where does this come from? How did this happen?
Well, this is what we're trying to figure out, and
we actually talked about this. I think, didn't we talk about this just briefly after the show?
Last show, we talked about where did this come from. It's in the educational system, and one of the things we kind of both identified, in fact, you kind of just proven the point that all this stuff goes way back. You have that 30-year-old anecdote about the milk, but I'm starting to think that, it came about with the security state after World War II. It started with the takeover of the education by the woke.
Yes.
The education system. And I think a lot of it has to all do with television. And none of this maybe would even take place if there weren't these screens with the...
Well, time to remind everybody that when I was a kid, and I get to say that now with my double nickels, when I was a kid, we were limited to how much TV we could watch. And it was, don't sit too close, don't watch too much, it's going to rot your brain. This was, and I'm sure that was propagated by the book industry or whatever. But
it was called, I don't think the book industry needed to do that. It was called the boob tube.
Boob tube, yeah. And, these days, you see kids in the stroller on iPads,
The newspapers did nothing about this. They couldn't compete. You talk about the death of the newspapers. They used to be competitive, but then the TV news started stealing their lunch, and of course now they blame the internet. But the internet's not the problem. The internet is just television in a networked form, and
in a hard to monetize form, which makes it that much more interesting.
And so you have you have this situation where the entire public has become stupefied, but to the extent that it is, this is what we're talking about. Is it really any worse with the idiots at the Independent printing this guy's? And by the way, I made a mistake by I said Liam Evans was the interviewer. It's not the case. It was the fake name for this article. If the Independent is so stupid as to run this fake hoax Jonathan Swift kind of essay just without even doing any research or checking it out or even thinking that it's phony or a fake, I'm not convinced that this wouldn't have happened 40 years ago.
Well, this kind of explains why this was in my clip bin, and I brought it to the show and thinking, how does this relate to anything? And it kind of relates to this, the education system. So I'm sure you've seen the old Soviet spy guy. We've played clips from him on YouTube where he says, we attacked America, we attacked the West through the educational system. We brought in all these Marxist, Leninist thinking. And so I don't know how this wound up in my clip bin, but it's 2 minutes, so I'll play it.
But before you play that, what you just said, just as a reminder, earlier in the show, we pointed out the stupidity of Harvard hiring these spies from China.
Yes.
It's very easy for the educational system to be corrupted.
Do you remember
at the highest levels?
The McElhaney report? McElhaney, I think it was, how do you pronounce it? McElhaney report. It was on TV in like the mid to late 90s, I want to say. And
or earlier.
Could have been early. Well, some of the references in this don't go back that far. So this it's not from 2011 was the upload date. So I was trying to source a date for it. But this is the title of this was The Perestroika Deception. And it kind of explains in an odd way the guy I'm talking about, KGB defector Yuri Bezmenov. Thank you, Troll Room. That's the guy who warned America that the Soviet Union, not Russia, the Soviet Union had set us up for this, hollowing out the West from within through the educational system. So this is just an introduction, and I encourage everyone to watch this. It's a whole hour. This is just 2 minutes of the introduction of the Perestroika Deception, which I believe is the fourth book that this particular author who's being interviewed put out. And let's just see if it pertains. I think it does. I think it connects to this.
Welcome to the McElhaney Report. I'm Bill McElhaney. On this show, we cover current issues of the day, but always from a viewpoint or perspective rarely aired by the mass media. We hope you'll find it interesting. Since 1989, the world has been told that the Soviet Union collapsed and that, except for several countries, communism is dead and the U.S. won the Cold War. The The truth, the reality is quite the reverse. Everything we have witnessed since 1989 has been a massive and successful, multi-decade-long deception strategy on the part of the KGB, the Soviet secret police. The goal? To deceive the West and achieve the goal of Leninist strategy, a totalitarian world government or international police state. We know this from the evidence provided by Anatoly Golitsyn, the most important defector from the KGB who came to America in 1961. In 1980, he wrote a book, New Lies for Old, that was published in 1984, which described the disinformation strategy and made specific predictions as to what the KGB would do in subsequent years, such as removing the Berlin Wall, changing the name of the KGB itself and other structures in the Soviet hierarchy, and also the role to be played by Mikhail Gorbachev. An independent analysis of these predictions years later showed that over 94% of them came true by 1991 and since then. That's how we know Golitsyn was telling the truth, and quite correct. Our guest today, who first appeared on this show in 1995, is uniquely qualified to expose this conspiratorial strategy. Based in London, he publishes 10 newsletters and reviews on economic, financial, and political intelligence, including Soviet analysts. These invaluable periodicals incorporate the understanding of post-1989 events provided by Anatoly Golitsyn. He's published Golitsyn's second book, Perestroika Deception. He's also published Joseph Douglas's Red Cocaine on the Soviet strategy of using drugs to sabotage the West. And he's published a very important book, The European Union Collective, on the regional world government now in place over both Europe and Britain.
So it was Anatoly Golitsyn, which is a different guy, but he was also a KGB defector. And a couple of takeaways from this, because if you've watched that whole interview, it's clear that there were definitely Leninist, Marxist messaging pumped into the Western school system, particularly the United States. But also when you listen, I mean, I was in the Soviet Union in 1989, just before David Hasselhoff personally brought the wall down. A lot of politicians who are still in Congress today, I'm looking at these 70 to 80-year-olds, they probably have this in their head. Like, you know, that this, and I can't really blame them for it to a degree. It's like, this is nothing different. This is still, they just changed the name of the KGB to the FSB. Your thought?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always thought that guy was kind of an alarmist. But as we witness more and more and more, especially what's going on now with this latest group, the millennials and the Zs, Zoomers, they're very susceptible to this. It seems like they got it from the beginning. They get it on the media. They get it on TV. They get it from the news.
Well, if anything,
which just supports the.
If anything, they've been taught to subject to authority. Don't question authority. It's on the news. It must be true.
They don't. You're right. They don't. And we talk about this. A couple of things I've noticed is a new phenomenon I've run into. And we had a discussion about this at the table. And it goes thus. And I've only noticed this recently. So I'm in line at one of the, Whole Foods or one of these types of places. And I've got a cart full of stuff. And there's somebody behind me, a millennial almost always. And the millennial has like one item. The last most recent example, which triggered the thinking, because I'm starting to see a pattern. She had one pint of ice cream. I had a cart full of stuff. Right. I said, "You want to go ahead?" And I gave her the motion to go ahead of me in line, because there's no reason she should wait for me to bring all this stuff when she's got one crappy pint of ice cream. That's all she's got. And it's melting in her hand. Oh, no thanks. I can wait.
Wait a minute. Were you wearing your Crocs? Because she might have just been afraid of you.
You want me to do this? Continue this? Or
come on, just one joke.
I've never had Crocs, so then I finally get to the part of the line where I'm just about to put my stuff on the thing, and I offered her a second time. Would you like to go ahead? And right now is the moment. You can just jump in front of me, they'll ring it up, you'll be out of here. No, thanks. No, thanks.
She felt
this has happened to me more than once. And so I brought it up. I think this has seemed pretty screwy because I'm not the type of person to say no when somebody I got.
No, I'd be like, thank you very much.
Yeah, I say thank you, and I go in front. So the two theories came out of the table. One was that millennials don't like to have any interaction with anybody, and so this is nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking to deal with this kind of situation, which is you're in line where you belong.
Yeah.
And you're not getting,
Chef slave.
So,
yeah.
The other one, which was more disturbing, I didn't completely buy this one. The other one was, they're deferring because I'm old. And they're just being super polite.
What the hell does that? Well, first of all, you don't look super old. So what? They're trying to be polite to
I found that to be less likely.
Yeah, I'm not buying that.
I wasn't buying it either.
But for sure, when we were kids, we definitely scoffed at old people. Hey, old man! We just yell at them. And we were assholes, of course. But there was a time in my youth and hey, get out of the way, old man! It was very mean.
Yeah.
So, well, that does seem like not so much Soviet Union stuff, but Leninist, perhaps, Marxist.
It's very, it's order. This is my position. I'm going to stay here and then move up as I'm supposed to when I'm supposed to. I find it to be very peculiar. And I would like to hear from others out there. This is part of my collection of millennialisms.
Yeah.
I would like to hear from others out there who have some similar experiences. Because we noticed this, we did have this about 4 or 5 years ago on the show. We first started discussing millennials, and we noticed this one phenomenon is that they don't know how to deal with a line cutter.
Right. Oh,
no,
not at all.
Confrontational.
Not at all.
So the guy cuts in line. They don't say anything. They look at each other and they just scratch their heads. They don't know what to do. It takes a boomer or even a Gen Xer to tell the guy, hey, buddy, the line is back there.
Right.
So,
along similar lines, since we're doing old stuff, a documentary from 1978. This is how far back we document the pet explosion.
Most people don't know it, but we're in the middle of a pet explosion throughout not only the United States, but throughout the world. And this is brought about from the new pattern that has emerged in the last 10, 15 years in the family life. I would say that the pill is probably largely more responsible for the pet explosion than any other single factor. This is quite a surprise to a lot of people that don't understand the business and haven't done any background work. But it's very simple. The old style was for the husband to earn the living and the mother stayed at home. Today we have a different pattern. Today the husband and wife both work, and they want to prepare themselves with a home and some of the things that they'd like to have before they start a family. Well, this is just fine from a planning standpoint, but nature can't be put aside. So when the young mother comes home, she has to have something to fondle, something to mother, something to love. She'll have a pet. The rest of it in the normal pattern would be that the grandparents would have children, grandchildren, to take care of, to fondle, and to help to rear. And this would satisfy their need for love and giving of love and receiving. But when this has been set aside for 5, 6, 7, or 8 years, what do? They get a pet. Now we're talking about both sides of the family. We're not talking about just one. Now we have a three-way explosion.
The three-way pet explosion. This is not new. It's been building for a long time.
Yeah, all part of a similar sociological phenomenon that began.
Yeah.
At some point
during the Soviet era. Not that specifically had something to do with it, but we take television, you take the infiltration of the schools, you take medical breakthroughs like the pill. It was very, of course, it was a true revolution.
Okay, well, what else could we talk about that's depressing?
I'll start, and this will fold nicely into your Weinstein update. This is an Epstein update. Cindy McCain, who is the widow of John McCain, was on a panel, and this is a clip from a almost a week ago, but now I get to play it. And here's what she had to say about Epstein.
The perception between a lot of young people is that there is an untouchable ring of governmental and economic elites in this country that not only benefit, like she mentioned, but actively participate in sex trafficking. Jeffrey Epstein was an example. Robert Kraft was arrested not far from here on trafficking charges. Are these power players a priority for us right now? Can we even touch them? Or is this a pipe dream that we need to address in the future somehow?
It's like everything. It hides in plain sight. Epstein was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him. We all knew what he was doing. But we had no one that was,
What?
What?
We all knew? Everybody knew? We all knew, yet you kept quiet? I find this abhorrent.
Where'd you get this clip, by the way?
Well, I'd have to go back and look, because I said I had it a week ago. It's on panel.
Well, this guy's full of shit, for one thing. He says that Robert Kraft, who was the owner of the
course he's
was
full
arrested
of shit.
on trafficking.
No, of course he's full of shit.
He was arrested for soliciting a prostitute.
Right. But that's
not trafficking.
I got it, but who cares?
I do care, because I think they're gonna. This is another one of those examples of where they start to twist the language.
Twist it. Oh, well, sure. Well, what else is new?
You solicit a prostitute. Now you're involved in sex trafficking somehow,
and we all knew about it.
It's like everything. It hides in plain sight. Epstein was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him. We all knew what he was doing. But we had no one that was legal aspect that would go after him. They were afraid of him.
The wife of a United States senator says here, well, no one could do anything. No one would go after him.
For whatever reason, they were afraid of him.
Whatever reason they were afraid. What do you think, Cindy?
And someone said, BS. We're not afraid of you anymore, and what you're doing is not only wrong, it's illegal, it's, all those things. It's like a house of cards now. It's going to start tumbling, believe me. And these guys, if they don't leave the country, number one, they're going to get caught, and they're going and they, not only will they get caught, but they're going to be made examples of. And that's exactly what we should be doing with these guys, especially. In my opinion, if, I know there's questions, but Epstein's a chicken shit for doing what he did. He should have faced the music, that one. He should have.
Wow.
Sorry.
Wow. Really, Ms. McCain? Really? You're the wife, a sitting U.S. senator, and now Epstein's a chicken shit? We all knew. Everybody knew. We all knew. No. That's disgusting.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting in a meta sense. That's disgusting. What I'm about to play
is truly sickeningly disgusting.
It's disgusting on a visceral level.
Yes.
So this is a testimony. This is from Court TV, and what they do is they grab.
By the way, Court TV is available on Pluto.
Oh, good.
Yeah, just FYI.
Well, Court TV, it's also online. You can get it online. But Court TV, and then you get to see this, one of the most, you want to see a rising star if she wants to stay with it. There's this woman that they have, one of the correspondents. She goes to the cases, and then she reports back. They have about 3 or 4 really good-looking ladies. But this one is just the one you can just see. She's going to fuck. She's got a law degree. She's got this Phi Beta Kappa. She got all these characteristics. Miss Arkansas. From some year, I think 10 years ago. She was Miss Arkansas, and her name is, and she's got a fake, like a stage name already, or a stripper's name, one of the two. Chanley. Chanley Painter. And you just look at her and you go, oh my God, she's gonna be making lots of money on Fox. If they have a clue. She's a brunette though. Now, this is what they do on Court TV now is they're following the Weinstein case very closely, and they buy the transcript immediately after the testimonies. They get them from the court recorders, and then they reenact the testimony with some actors that do a pretty good job of making you think that you're hearing the real testimonies, even though this is not.
Is it just audio, or do they reenact the whole video?
Audio.
Just that's good. That's cool.
And so here is
should be a podcast.
I clipped a few things out of this. It's about 2 minutes. I clipped a few things out because it would have been too long because there's a lot of interruptions, and they got out of the court. They got the judge in there bitching and moaning, but there's stuff in here that is truly disgusting.
Describe what was happening to you and what your interaction with him was.
Objection, foundation judge.
Overruled.
He would talk very dirty to me about
objection.
Foundation. Overruled.
Fantasies and things, and compare me to other actresses that he said were doing kinky, dirty things with him.
Judge, can we approach?
Overruled. No.
He always wanted to film me.
Objection.
Did you ever give him permission to do that?
I never gave him permission.
Question and answer stands. Next question.
What was the relationship? Describe the relationship for the jury.
It would be basically him wanting to see me and just needing a fix like a drug addict.
Objection.
Sustained.
What's going on here?
What would he say to you?
All right. First of all, holy crap! This should be a podcast. I don't know what Court TV's doing, but this is podcastable material right here. This is really good. We return.
And just needing a fix like a drug addict.
Objection.
Sustained.
What's going on here?
What would he say to you? What would he do with you? What would you say to him? What would you do with him?
He would say, "Do you like my big, fat, Jewish..."
Objection, judge. May we approach?
Okay. If you would step down there for a moment.
Judge, I'm asking that those answers be stricken and the prosecutor be directed to move on.
Request denied. Next question.
Ms. Mann, can you describe to the jury the defendant's physicality?
The first time I saw him fully naked.
Objection. Unresponsive.
I thought...
Objection.
Overruled.
I thought he was deformed and intersex.
Objection.
He has an extreme scarring that I didn't know if maybe he was a burn victim, but it wouldn't make sense.
Objection.
Overruled.
He does not have testicles, and it appears like he has a vagina.
Objection.
Overruled.
And does the defendant also have a penis?
Objection. Leading.
He does have a penis.
Overruled.
Did you engage in non-forcible sexual situations with the defendant?
I engaged in non-forcible oral sex with the defendant.
Did you desire him sexually?
Objection. She just testified she entered...
Overruled.
No.
Why did you continue to have a relationship with him?
There is a lot of layers to that question.
Okay. Next question.
While you were in this situation with the defendant, what were you feeling towards him?
I saw him the way I saw my father.
Objection.
Overruled. Next question.
In what way?
My dad had a similar anger.
Objection.
Overruled. Move on.
Did the defendant at times display anger to you?
Objection. Foundation.
Yes.
Overruled.
In what way would he... In what circumstances would he display anger towards you?
If he heard the word no, it was like a trigger for
Objection.
him.
Overruled.
Objection.
Overruled.
He also peed on me once.
Objection. Foundation.
Overruled.
He would it was like being discarded after I served my purpose.
Objection.
Sustained.
I think this is fantastic. I do have a follow-up on this, though, regarding the state of his sexual organs. By the way, because it's so disgusting, you only get a borderline, but you do get that. Borderline. Clip of the day. Because it really brings the quality of all Clip of the Days down to just like gutter level.
Oh, yeah.
So,
no, I knew that when I made the clip. I thought this was a questionable clip to even play on the show.
Well, here's the part that's
so good.
Yeah, here's the part that may blow your mind. So I read through the transcript of the description of his sexual organs, which didn't really come out that well in this particular audio reenactment. But he has. It looks like, so she said, it looked like he was intersex and like he had no testicles and like stuff was inverted. Isn't that kind of what she said?
Yeah.
This may be a typical case of a hemipenis, which is one of a pair of intromittent organs. Hepipenises are usually held inverted within the body and are everted for reproduction via erectile tissue, much like that of a normal human penis. They come in a variety of shapes depending on species. In particular, intermittent organs of male squamates such as snakes, lizards, and worm lizards.
Oh, wow.
I think Weinstein's a lizard.
Well, that's a possibility. Mimi said that he probably has cryptochism, which is where people, I think, is or undescended balls.
I'm going with lizard. I'm going with reptile.
Well, lizard's probably more for our for purposes of our show.
It feels better to say.
But he also, there's two other things that I didn't get in that clip because I didn't get the clip, and unfortunately, I couldn't find a clip of the analysis. But he also smells like poop. Which is a...
you really want to be an actor pretty bad.
Trimethylaminuria, which is a particular thing that makes you smell like poop all the time. It's an actual...
He looks like he smells like poop, John. Just look at the man.
He smells like poop, and he also apparently is back, which is really disgusting. I don't even want to bring this up.
Yeah, go.
It's just covered with huge blackheads.
Oh, my God.
I mean, really? Can we get any worse?
I don't know how to... I got to transition out. I got to get up out of this. Let's get out.
I'm going to show my support by donating to No Agenda. Imagine all the people who could do that. Oh, yeah, that'd be fab. Yeah, on No Agenda.
And there's a reason why you don't hear this kind of stuff on the M5M. There's no way. Can you imagine the Dairy Council? I think they'd have a problem with this segment.
I had a problem with it personally.
Well done, though.
But Court TV didn't have a problem. Let's thank a few people for show 1213, starting with Eric Arjo from Stockholm, Sweden, $199. We're going to move him up to associate executive producer.
We should.
Jason Petrie, $144. He said he missed a 12 by 12 equals 144 donation last week. I don't remember that. Air Force John 121.20. New England Meetup came in with $116. They also sent us a note, which I have.
Okay.
New England Meetup. Where are you? It's on here somewhere. There it is. It's not a big note, so not a big problem. This is various cast donations and he put it into a mail order and sent it, which is the way to go. This is the first-time donation for several of the producers in attendance, so if they would be so kind to give a general de-douching, and those in need, it would be greatly appreciated. They know who they are.
You've been de-douched.
He says it was a great meetup, amazing event, FEMA region, foam finger #1 baby. Thank you for your courage and passion. Keep pushing.
All right.
And this came from Sir Ernesto Grande, KNA of the heavy-handed riff and basher of strings.
Thank you. And thanks to all.
He's a guitarist. Jamie Scott, $111.11 from Plano, Texas. Baron Latikin, $100. Eduardo Calderon in Plano, Texas. Plano, have a meetup. $100. Bob Staley, $88.88. Sir Gott Nate in Sebastopol, California, $69.69. Sir Loud Pipes, 5678 in Charlotte, North Carolina. David Nixon, $55.10. Sir Tom Derry in DeForest, Wisconsin. Comes in routinely. Anonymous, he came in at $55.10. Anonymous Chicana, $53.53. Thank you for the bi-weekly deconstruction.
And she wants a de-douching?
You've been de-douched.
And Travel Karma coming up for you.
At the end. Michael Barco in Salem, Oregon, $52.22. Eric Hokel in Mulrose, Deutschland, $52. Without the crazy characters. Andrew Blackburn in Mount Zion, Illinois, $50.33. Yancey Summerhour, $50.33. Brian Mosler. Or Mosier.
Mosier. He's a W5BRM. I know Brian. Brian's a NAM, a No Agenda ham.
Hey. 73s.
Hey.
Scott of the Tail, Iowa Corn. Davenport, Iowa.
In this case, it's the tall Iowa corn. You got an I and L problem today.
Well, they did on this. It looks at the ice from I'm about 5 feet away from the monitor, so
that might explain some of the issue.
Well, I can't get much closer and have a mic in front of me. Jeremy Cartwright, Rockford, Illinois, 50. The following people are $50 donors: Jeremy Cartwright, Bradley Ledden, Michael Janoski in Lindora, Pennsylvania, Eric Wills in Eldersburg, Maryland, Ichi Kitagawa in San Francisco, Sir Brian Watson in Raleigh, North Carolina, and last but not least, Sir Brett Farrell in OKC. I want to thank all these folks for making 12-13 even a possibility.
Thank you all, and thank you to those under the $50 cutoff for reasons of keeping the show within the 3-hour limit, more or less. It's highly appreciated. This is your podcast. That's why it's the best one in the universe, and you are making it roll forward. Thank you all so much, and please remember that we do have another show coming up on Thursday. To support us for that show, go to Dvorak.org/NA. Okay, we have a couple of, let me see, Emergency F Cancer Karma requested by Sir Istvan. He said Emergency F Cancer Karma. And then Michael Bernstein. I'm not sure if we made good on this. I was jitty when Adam had a new beat with his tiny home segments. Didn't we do this? I'm currently building a premium tiny home community. I thought we did this one. Anyway.
No, this is the one we missed.
Okay. It said,
I think it has to be read because he was a $200 donor.
Yes, that's correct. Mutualwin.com in North Carolina. It was fantastic to hear the best podcast in the universe talking about a topic close to my heart. My father, Alan Bernstein, hit me in the mouth while we were exploring Zion National Park a few years ago, and I would like the $200 applied to his knighthood quest and the balance of .007, representing the one English spy not tainted by the Steele dossier, for my own journey. I will be meeting Mutual Win suppliers in Oslo, Norway, February 8th, and Stockholm, Sweden, February 14th, and have created meetups for both days. I will be wearing my No Agenda Space Force t-shirt, looking extremely American for both events. I would love to connect with any of our Scandinavian listeners before my trip for some sightseeing recommendations. His email is Michael, M-I-C-K-A-E-L, at mutualwin.com, mutualwin.com. He wants a Goat Scream Karma for his tiny home project, and we encourage that. I love they're pretty tiny homes. They're modern designs. They're not just.
Yeah, they're not the kind of crap they're building in Berkeley.
Yeah,
looks like an outhouse with a window.
So let me do the karma for them, including the emergency F cancer karma, and we're throwing a jobs karma because everybody can use some of that.
Jobs, 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 and jobs. Let's vote for jobs.
You've got karma.
It is the birthday list for February 2nd, 2020. Randall Scheibel turns 26 on the 4th. That's, what is that, Tuesday? Anonymous, 33 today. The magic number, couldn't get any better than that. Sir Woody of the Falls turns 73 today. And Ono Priester says happy birthday to his daughter, who is celebrating her 22nd birthday on the second day of the second month. Happy birthday, everybody. Here's the best podcast in the universe. And yes, we do.
Title changes, turn and face the slave. Title changes, don't wanna be a douche.
In our peerage system, where you move up a level every single time you reach the $1,000 or more in aggregate, Sir Charles of the Tiki Bars is now a baron, and we congratulate him with his title and his upped peerage representation. You can find that at itm.im/peerage for the map. I think it's reasonably up to date, and congratulations, Sir Charles. Then we do have the birthday boy, at least on Tuesday, Randall Scheibel. He will be knighted today, so if you can have your blade at the ready, sir.
Here you go.
Thank you very much. Randall Scheibel. Step on up here. You didn't have anything special for the round table, but I have the regular requisite items. I'm sure they will be to your liking. Thank you for your support of the No Agenda Show in the amount of $1,000 or more. Therefore, you join the Knights and Dames of the No Agenda Roundtable. It's a very exclusive club, and I pronounce-icate thee, Sir Scheibel, Knight of the No Agenda Roundtable for you. We've got Hookers and Blow, Rent Boys and Chardonnay. We've got Single Malt Scotch, Early Times and BF4, Dr. Pepper and a quick handy maybe, Rabbit Meat and Goat Milk, Fish Pie and Fellatio, Harlots and Haldol, Redheads and Ryes, Beards and Blunts, Vodka and Vanilla, Geishas and Sake, Rubenesque Women and Rosé, Ginger Ale and Gerbil, Sparkling Cider and Escorts, Bong Hits and Bourbon, and mutton and mead. That's always here at the table, so you can take that. You can take all of those things with you, but make sure you stop off at noagendanation.com/rings. Eric the Shield would love to take your information so we can get your ring, your sealing wax, and your certificate out as soon as possible. And thank you again for supporting your best podcast in the universe.
No Agenda
It's like a party, everybody. That's right. We have a couple of meetup reports, as we had a very busy meetup week. If you don't know what this is about, this is where people go hang out, no triggering. Everybody has the same No Agenda Nation thinking, no agenda thinking in general, and really your background does not matter. Your age does not matter. People get along just fine. We start with the No Agenda Sarina, Ontario meetup in Scandinavia.
This is producer Adam Naus at the Sarnia meetup at the Refined Fool. Thank you for making podcasting great again.
This is Trevor Collette, and I'm a douchebag.
This is Sir Pat. Thank you for your courage.
Herman Naus. I really enjoy your program.
And I'm Oma Naz, and I'm the Oma of most of the people around this table.
Hi, it's Ann Noss. Thanks for doing what you do, guys.
This is soon-to-be Dame Julia, and I am so excited to be at the No Agenda meetup.
This is Samuel Naus, and I need to listen more.
This is the not yet indicted David Naus.
This is Eric Naus in the morning.
Sounds like they had the whole family for the meetup.
The whole extended family.
I love that. The family that
was there anybody besides the Nauses there?
I don't know. I have no idea. Who cares? They're big enough for a meetup. It's fantastic. I like that so much. The No Agenda inaugural meetup in Missoula, Montana.
In the morning from Montana, we are at the inaugural 406 meetup here at Conflux Brewing Club, where it's a party!
Sounds like someone had some George Martin production skills there with Left and Right Channel. Then I think this is the last meetup report we have. This is the Charleston, North Carolina meetup.
In the morning from the Charleston, South Carolina meetup, we are at Moe's Crosstown, Best Burger in Charleston. I am the Baronetess Jennifer of the Possible Exit Strategy, and my husband did not like the night name that I suggested for him, but he's going to introduce himself now.
In the morning, which I would think is called In the Money because I trade stocks and options, but thanks to my beautiful wife, Baronetess Jennifer, this is Sir Buck of 2112.
Daniel here. I donate $5 a month, and that better be good enough.
What's up?
This is Mike B, now in Charleston, not Odessa. Enjoying life out in the complex in the woods.
This is Katie. I'd like to say hi to my brother Tim, who hit me in the mouth over 10 years ago.
Hey, this is Jason. I'd like to give credit to the person who hit me in the mouth, but I don't know who it was. It was somebody on a Ron Paul video comment section. So, thank you guys.
Hey, Adam and John, this is Greg. Thank you for your courage, and boom shakalaka.
Hey guys, this is the real Greg B. Thank you, and I'd like to thank the left turn that I took on 4chan that brought me to No Agenda. Cheers.
Hey, this is Dave Beth. Thank you for your courage.
This is Sir Daniel. It's time for me to go home. Everyone's febrile in the morning. Have a good one.
Yeah, apparently Sir Daniel's Human Resources were not having any of it. They did not like it, had to go. And it was, of course, Charleston, South Carolina, and that was organized by Baroness Dame Jennifer of the Possible Exit Strategy. That is her Baroness name. She also the art director and sole employee of the animated No Agenda Studios.
Yeah.
It was very good. Thank you very much. Here's what's coming up. Just a brief overview.
She sounds like she can do good voiceovers.
I think she can do a lot of things. She totally gets media. She's been in this game. She knows what she's doing. And just really appreciate the animated No Agenda. It's so good. Thursday, we have a meetup in Fairfield, Connecticut. This will be organized by Dame Jamie. Also, the Ramallah stop. This is at 6:30 in the Palestinian territories. They'll be at Barley's in Ramallah, Israel. Jesse Coy Nelson is our man who is traveling around the Middle East right now. And as I was pointed out to me, Israelis are not allowed to attend this. They are not allowed in Ramallah.
Well, that's why he has to do one over in Jeddah.
He's doing the next one in Jeddah, which will be...
Or Jaffa.
Jaffa. Jaffa. That'll be on the 9th.
Not Jeddah. Jeddah's in Saudi Arabia.
Right. Jaffa it's the Shafa Bar in Jaffa, and that will be next Sunday. This Friday, though, Loose Top of the South New Zealand Piss Up. That'll be at the Spring and Fern Tahunawi. Your mate Tom organizing. Toronto this Friday, No Agenda 6-week cycle. Bishop organizing for you. Also the Southern Chilenoisian meetup. I keep getting that wrong. Sir Raleigh Hawk and Joseph Hawkins organizing Seattle No Agenda meetup at the Lookout Bar and Grill on Friday. And then Saturday, Oslo, Norway. That is Bernstein, who we just heard. Sir Bernstein will be organizing that. It'd be good if we can get some people to hang out there. And as just mentioned, the Jaffa stop of the No Agenda Toon Man Tour on Sunday the 9th. Go to noagendameetups.com to find out more. There's always a meetup happening somewhere, someplace on the 21st. The Keeper and I will be in Delray Beach, Florida. And if you don't find one, start one yourself. Go to noagendameetups.com.
Sometimes you wanna go hang out with all the nights and days. You wanna be where you won't be triggered or held lame. You wanna be where everybody feels the same. It's like a party.
It's like a party. And they're getting pretty successful.
Sounds like it.
Do you have anything for... I'm dying to do a quickie OTG segment, but I've been talking a lot, so I'd be happy to hear you speak about something before we do that.
Well, I got some old clips. They were kind of interesting, I thought. This was I have another ISO suggestion. This one is Nailed It.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
Let me compare to the Bloomberg.
I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
No, I think Mike Bloomberg approving our message is better. I like it.
Let's go to 2008. And I thought this was interesting. They don't do this as much anymore. This was Democracy Now! When Amy was a little more on the ball. And this was a report on the 2008 presidential candidates. This is the time it was wide open for both parties. And so what they were doing here was analyzing the advisors, and it's the same people. In fact, it's kind of disgustingly so. The same people that were advising these candidates back in 2008 as they were getting today, 12 years later. And the rundown is quite fascinating to me.
Thousands of reporters have also descended on Iowa this week, covering everything from Mike Huckabee's haircut to John Edwards' rally with singer John Mellencamp. But little attention has been paid to perhaps one of the most important aspects of the candidates, their advisors, the men and women who likely form the backbone of the candidate's future cabinet if elected president. Many of the names will be familiar. Advisors to Hillary Rodham Clinton include many former top officials in President Clinton's administration, former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, former National Security Advisor Samuel Berger, former UN Ambassador Richard Holbrooke. Senator Barack Obama's list includes President Carter's national security advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski, former counterterrorism czar Richard Clarke, former Middle East negotiator Dennis Ross. Rudolph Giuliani's advisors include Norman Podhoretz, one of the fathers of the neoconservative movement. John McCain's list of official and formal policy advisors include former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, General Colin Powell, William Kristol of the Weekly Standard, and former CIA Director James Woolsey. One of Mitt Romney's top advisors is Cofer Black, the former CIA official who now serves as vice chair of Blackwater Worldwide. Vice President Dick Cheney's daughter Elizabeth is advising Fred Thompson. As for Mike Huckabee, it's not clear. In December, Huckabee listed former UN Ambassador John Bolton as someone with whom he either has, quote, spoken or will continue to speak, but Bolton then revealed the two had never spoken. Huckabee also named Richard Allen, but the former national security advisor also admitted he'd never spoken to Huckabee.
Now, the name that came up in there was Cofer Black, a CIA guy who's a kind of in that Hayden Rodriguez cult of torturers. And it's interesting because he's on the board of Burisma.
Oh, yes, the Romney advisor, of course.
And somebody pointed out, well, here's something that's interesting. Romney, this is nonsense. This guy, I've seen interviews of him, and you don't see him. He's a very low-profile guy. He does come on shows, so he's not like completely out of touch. Yeah. But he's not the kind of guy that, it probably did Romney a favor to even be on his advisors. There's no connection. The Romney connection to Burisma is not through this guy.
Is weak. Yeah, very weak. Hey, you know what I'm surprised by? That neither of us, unless I'm missing it, have any clip about Brexit. I mean, I watched it. I watched the final hour countdown.
I have a clip.
They projected the countdown on the White Cliffs of Dover, which looked pretty crappy, and then also on 10 Downing Street. And I was
they couldn't ring the bells. They wanted to ring the bells.
Yeah, Big Ben is under construction, so they couldn't do that.
I don't understand why they didn't put some high-powered speakers up there.
Well, they had the bell ringing, and then they had Big Ben superimposed on 10 Downing Street, so it kind of looked like Big Ben was ringing, and Big Ben, one of the faces was exposed. But it was really, to me, it was very anticlimactic because all people were talking about, and I watched the final hour on, I think, Sky through Pluto TV. It's all about, well, what's going to happen tomorrow? And everyone's like, nothing, exactly the same, nothing changes. Now the clock starts 11 months to figure out how to actually Brexit. So what happened here is because everyone's getting so fed up with it, said, okay, we'll just sign the paper that we're going to do it. But here's this little addendum that says all that bitching and moaning we've been doing for 3.5 years, that's just going to continue for the next 10 months. And by December 23rd, of 2020, they have to have the agreement in place for immigration, for trade, and for everything, pretty much. So this is,
which means they really haven't left.
No, they really, and they're still paying the fee. In fact, it's worse. They still have to pay their dues. They still have to run under European Union rule and law. Except now they don't have anyone representing them in the Parliament.
Their representation was a fraud anyway.
Yeah, still is pretty funny. I think it just got worse for them. I don't see how it got better.
Well, I don't see how it changed. I don't think it changed one way or the other.
Yeah, the change is they have no representation. There was a lot of people
celebrating. I mean, if you went to the soccer stadiums where people got to see a big image of the flag being taken out of the EU's councils, meet with the hallways, and they all jumped up for joy. But the media is not going to show any of that stuff because, as far as they're concerned, this is a bad idea. Now, I did get one clip that, which is this guy kind of runs a news site, online news site, but it's very interesting. This Brendan O'Neill. He was also interviewed by the Sun interviewer. And he gave a little history of Brexit that reminds us what the real reason that this even happened in the first place. And something that is kind of seems to be lost in the shuffle is that the Brits really lost their sovereignty in this deal, and they just regained it. And now they're kind of flat-footed. And I'm reminded of the time that you were living there when we first started doing the show. You were talking about how depressing everything was because everyone was a drunk. And I think a lot of this was all planned because once you lose your sovereignty and you have everybody else telling you what to do, I think it causes these sorts of problems with the society.
Do you know what I find absolutely...
I'm sorry. You want
to then let's play this clip and you'll get
Do you know
an
what
idea.
I find absolutely fascinating about that vote, and I think you hit on the point there, is it was the first time we were ever consulted on this since 1975.
Yes.
And all the way back in 1975, voters probably didn't think that the EU would adapt to what it is today. Can you talk about the kind of lie, as some people would put it, that they were sold in 1975, and how the EU continued to adapt, continued to centralise power more and more away from those those ordinary voters, and how the British people were never consulted, not even once, not even one treaty had a referendum in Britain.
That's right, absolutely right. The EEC was understood to be an economic relationship. We were told that it would be beneficial to the UK if we had this economic relationship with this block of countries, a fairly small block of countries back then in Europe, and it was understood by most people who then eventually voted in the referendum that came in 75. It was understood that it was a fairly narrow relationship. It was going to be economically based. It wouldn't have a grave impact on Britain as a sovereign nation. That's the lie we were told, and people accepted that, and for good reason. I don't think people were hoodwinked or brainwashed. People weighed things up and said, okay, if it's just going to be about economic partnership, if it's just going to be about trading and so on, and economic standards, we can live with that. Let's give it a whirl. Of course, what happens then through the 80s and then right through to the early 90s and then onwards from then, it becomes the European Union. It becomes a much more political body. It becomes a body that has a very significant say over the laws that we live by, over the ability of us to control our borders, over the free movement of people, the free movement of goods, the free movement of services across the continent or across the European Union. So it becomes much more powerful. It becomes much more political. It becomes much clearer that this is a body that significantly has a detrimental impact on our sovereign rights.
It's going to be very interesting to see how this goes. I mean, once again, Nexit has been rekindled. Frexit is on deck. This is it's just talk, of course, just talk. But now we have to see how it actually works. And unfortunately, it's just going to be at least another year until we figure out what's really going to happen. And in the meantime, I think it's going to be pretty bad for the UK. I think it's just my feeling. I can't back it up other than it seems like you're kind of like a lame duck position. You can't do anything. And unfortunately, they're just going to, what everyone wanted was not to hear about Brexit anymore. Now they're going to hear about it continuously. It's not going to stop.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's true.
OTG going OTG. I'm an OTG kind of guy.
OTG kind of guy off the grid.
OTG going OTG.
Not really without power.
I'm an OTG kind of guy.
Step away from the tracking. Step away from commercialism. That is pretty much going to ruin your life. And a good example was a week ago. This is so great. One of our producers gave us a login to Google Classroom. And apparently a lot of schools have adopted this. For a long time, Apple had, was putting Macs into schools, and then the Chromebook came out, and Google just, carpet bombed K1 through 12, and included. So but of course, if you want the Chromebooks, then you have to use Google Classroom to manage and track your students. Did you ever log into that, John? Did you ever log into?
No, I didn't.
Okay. It's not so great because, of course, there's no students in our classroom, but the system speaks for itself. And Google Docs, including Google Classroom, went down last week for several hours, and people didn't know what to do. I mean, the classes had to stop. They had to stop teaching. The class had to stop because they couldn't do anything. They could not, log in, look at assignments, even look at the curriculum, I guess. And people were trying to do term papers. Here's a hint for you. Stop that. Just use Notepad for all I care. Anything. You rely on this, you're going to get burned, and this is just once. It's going to happen more and more and more.
Which brings us to a note from Mike, producer Mike, which is a similar situation, which is another thing that we warn against. Cash emergency in most of BC happening currently. As we know, there's a huge flood going on.
There's a fiber
Bell
cut.
Canada fiber optic line has been severed due to a washout of the rail line near Spuzzum, of all places.
We have people there. We have Spuzzumers.
Might be global warming, or it could be winter weather in Canada.
How about Russia?
Russia. Putin. Fiber optic line parallels rail lines in most of Canada.
Yeah.
Pandemonium ensues as people have no money and no access to cash. Happily, a No Agenda producer is always prepared. Thanks, boys.
See? I love hearing that. I love that. That's right.
Your ATM, the ATMs don't work.
That's right. You got no cash, becomes a little difficult, and at a certain point, you're going to be hungry.
Amazon engineer
machines don't work.
This story came out. I'm desperate to talk about this one, although it's only part of the story about the Ring doorbell.
Amazon engineer calling for Ring to be shut down immediately, he says, citing privacy concerns. The engineer published a post on Medium saying, quote, the privacy issues are not fixable with regulation, and there is no balance that can be struck. Ring should be shut down immediately.
Now, by the way, I found this report interesting. That's why I pulled this one from the original Money Honey, Maria Bartiromo. This is on Fox Business News. This was not a post on Medium. It was a comment on a whole different post. It was a very short, just, like one paragraph saying exactly what she recited. But she kind of makes it out to sound like now it should be, because it is a big deal. But it was interesting that she pulled this out. I don't know if that was a stock manipulation thing or kind of, hyping it up a little bit for the market who loves to hear news about Amazon. But factually, it was not a post on Amazon, on a Medium. It was an anonymous comment.
And not brought back. This is, of course, the company that somebody rings your doorbell and you can deal with it from your phone, but it has opened the can of worms on privacy. Where is this video going? Are they giving the Ring video to everybody who shows up at your door to local police and others?
I mean, there's a few privacy issues here, and there's a lot of complicated issues here. I mean, one of the issues, of course, we've seen people taking hackers getting access to people's accounts, and part of that is the person themselves has to be responsible. Use a difficult password. Don't make it easy to guess. But you're right. We have to know what do they have deals with law enforcement? What are they going to do if law enforcement requests that? And we've seen those issues already with phones. So there's some precedent for what they might do.
I mean, if somebody shows up at your door and that person is questionable from the local police's standpoint, then how does that implicate you? It just opens the door to all these questions about who shows up at your doorstep.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Shut up. What is more egregious about the Ring doorbell system, as reported, and of course this didn't get any traction because of impeachment and Orange Man bad, everything. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, who get a lot of money from Google to stay alive, but I do like what they do in general. They did an investigation of the app that comes with the Ring doorbell, which you manage your entire system. And guess what? It's packed with, I'm reading from their report, packed with third-party trackers sending out a plethora of customers' personally identifiable information. 4 main analytics and marketing companies were discovered to be receiving information such as names, private IP addresses, mobile network carriers, persistent identifiers, sensor data on the devices. And by the way, you're a paying customer, and they're still selling your ass to other third-party marketers. And as the EFF correctly points out, the danger in sending even small bits of information is that analytics and tracking companies are able to combine these bits together to form a unique picture of the user's device and their life. Turn that stuff off. And it's despicable that Amazon, you pay for this stuff. It's just like Skype. If I look at Skype right now, I pay for Skype. I get an ad at the bottom of Skype now. And I pay for the service. Ugh. And the problem is there's a lot of these applications, like we were listening to the Amazon show and tell, the Alexa show and tell where it can identify the product. These are fantastic developments. I wish I could use them. I loved having the ability to use voice to have things turn on and off, and it's handy and for many things. But because of the business model, you've rendered it useless for people who have a brain. It's too bad, because a lot of the stuff is really cool technology, and I like it. But no, you cannot use it because of this. And this is, if people actually knew that what Amazon is doing, they'd probably think twice. And you're putting these things in your kid's bedroom. Anyway, live the OTG lifestyle, everybody. Give your kid a megaphone or something if he needs something. You don't need
OG OTG.
It's a very OG OTG. Exactly. That's all I got for that, for the segment for now.
Okay.
Main things. Just need to get those out. Otherwise, they pass by and no one talks about it. And then actually, I do have an unhoused clip. Very proud of what's going on in Austin. You'll recall that the governor of Texas, Abbott, got into a Twitter war, a tweet up with the mayor of Austin, what's his name again? Anyway, Adler, about the unhoused, because I'm not going to say they're all poor homeless people. They're grifters, many of them. They're aggressive window washer squeegee dudes. It's not just people who don't have a house or a home. In fact, Abbott repurposed a lot not far from we are in Southeast Austin. I'm going to go again and try and find it. I couldn't find it the first time, which would be for the unhoused to go. And something magical has happened. They've started to build a little community.
This once mostly empty lot in East Austin has become home to more than 100 people without another place to go.
We give everybody a chance. We don't judge you by your past history or anything like that. We give everybody a chance.
Once referred to as Camp Abbott because the governor opened the state-owned land to the homeless population, people here are now calling it something else.
It's called Camp Rat, Responsible Adult Transition Town for the homeless, run by the homeless.
Like every town, Camp Rat now has its own list of leaders.
Well, we have donation and volunteer recruiters. We have maintenance and general labor recruiters. We have the web designer. We have the the media outreach. We have security, and then we have a treasurer/donation organizer.
Corey Roberts, the secretary, schedules town meetings each week. The 7-person committee, nominated by those at the camp, has held 2 of those so far.
It's important because we actually have a voice. We actually have a hand that we are actually putting forth to actually make our lives a little bit better.
Changing the perception of the homeless community is important to those living at the camp.
Because we wanted to show people that we're not just criminals, drug addicts, slobs, bums off the street, that we're actually just anybody else in this community just without a house.
Right now, the committee is focused on finding food donations, so they don't always have to rely on provided MREs, providing hot showers instead of the makeshift stalls and water hose they're currently using, organizing events to help out others in the greater Austin community, and maybe, most importantly, giving newcomers a point of contact so they don't feel alone.
Don't be afraid to come out here if you have nowhere to live. You want the laws to leave you alone for being under a bridge. Come out here. It's safe. There's not really any violence out here. We're all a big family. Town.
I really like this development. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to bring food. This shows that it can work when you allow people to be a part of a community and build a community, give them some basic blocks to do that, which is literally all they got. And there is some protection. I think they do have police, making sure that things don't get out of hand. But they're creating their own community, and I think this is great.
This is how favelas got started in Brazil.
I'm not saying we won't have that, but at least it's a community, and they're trying to do something else other than, we got these tens of millions of dollars being spent on bull crap that does nothing. I was excited.
Well, they should just give the tens of millions of dollars in direct payments to these guys, and that would probably help.
Possibly, but that is
Give
not
everybody in that group $5,000 each. See what that does.
Not how it works.
That's the way it should work.
Reparations, he said. Reparations for being homeless. All right. Sorry, affiliates, if you were waiting. We're way over, but time flies when you're having fun and talking about Harvey's privates. Coming up next on NoAgendaStream.com, random thoughts about the Bezos hack. Stay tuned for that, NoAgendaStream.com. And I have a lot of Kung Flu mixes. End of show. We need to thank Ned Jeffrey, Johnny Benson, and Dustin Jones. And we return on Thursday with another thrilling edition of the No Agenda Show, the best podcast in the universe. Until then, everybody, remember us at Dvorak.org/NA. In the morning, I am Adam Curry.
And from northern Silicon Valley, where there seems to be a windstorm kicking up, the San Francisco Bay is totally brown and is blowing everything around, and the seagulls are flying over the house. I'm John C. Dvorak.
We return on Thursday right here on No Agenda. Remember, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Adios, mofos, and such.
I got Wuhan flu from the fish market I was visiting, and now I'm stuck here. Oh.
Don't trust China. China is asshole.
China. China is here. People are dying. I'm not scared at all.
The Chinaman is not the issue here.
China. Wuhan. Somebody from China.
Wuhan outbreak caused by animal virus.
Wuhan. There's a city now in lockdown. China. Wuhan. China all the time.
Vampire bat.
Wuhan. Tastes like chicken.
What does that mean? China is here. I don't even know what the hell that means.
Just buy those face masks off the shelf. I bought 10 boxes of them for myself. Didn't help me much, and now I'm totally screwed. Oh no, I got the Wuhan flu. I got myself a case of Wuhan flu. I don't know what I am supposed to do. Didn't know I had it when I gave it to you. Now we all got the Wuhan flu.
The best podcast in the universe.
Mofo.
Dvorak.org/NA.
I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
The No Agenda Show with Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak. Live every Sunday and Thursday, 12 p.m., 11 Central. On NoAgendaStream.com.
No.
Agenda.
In the morning?
It is the best podcast in the universe. Value.
Value.
Model. Enabling.
Stunning.
News.
Analysis. Without integrity.
Compromising. Advertisers.
For more than
11 years.
Listen
Live on Thursday.
and Sunday.
Hello and welcome to episode number 69 of the Random Thoughts Podcast. That's RANDUMB Thoughts.com. Online, I am your host, Darren O'Neill, and on today's show, we're going to be focusing on the Bezos hack. We've talked a lot on this podcast about security, especially when it comes down to cell phones, and most of the things we've talked about were kind of out there in the ether. Suggestions of what could happen, warnings of what might happen. This story's a little bit different, as this is something that actually has happened to Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, and seemingly, because of the hack, took out his marriage and cost him a whole lot of money. So, let's just ask ourselves the questions right up front. If it can happen to him, do you really think it can't happen to you? The app at the center of this whole hacking debacle is a program called WhatsApp, one that I have never used, but one that it seems billions of people around the world do use, thinking it is a secure messaging app. A lot of people question that when WhatsApp was acquired by Facebook, even though they were heralded as forward thinking and being in the security corner because they added end-to-end encryption to their messages. Well, it turns out that end-to-end encryption is also something that makes it a little bit easier for nefarious people to do nefarious things. The timeline on the Bezos incident starts in April of 2018 and comes to its more or less end in January of 2019. So I did a little bit of research, doing a simple web search for, is WhatsApp safe? And was intrigued to find an article on the website makeuseof.com from December 2019, which pondered that exact question. Now, they had 5 points that they brought up that people should be aware of. One being that QR codes were often used to spoof a fake version of WhatsApp, that there were unencrypted backups if you had your WhatsApp data going to iCloud or syncing up to your Google Drive, they were sent unencrypted, which means the end-to-end encryption between your device while the message is coming in is nice. But if your backups aren't encrypted, you might want to be very careful about where and how you're backing that data up. Another point of concern was with how much data WhatsApp actually shares with mothership Facebook. And the thing that seemingly did get Jeff Bezos is the media file jacking ability within WhatsApp. What that all boils down to is exactly how applications on your phone are allowed to save data and where they can save the data. In a case like the Bezos case, it is thought that a malformed video file with a little bit of a nefarious payload is what took his phone down the hacked path. When an app can only save something to its internal storage, keeping it within the app, you can only view that picture or that video in the app itself. So if you get something in WhatsApp, you can't see it in your image gallery. You can't view it on another video playing platform on your device. And of course, that is inconvenient. Something we've learned when it comes to security is quite often we do things that we shouldn't for convenience. When a program can then save this data instead to the external storage, it can be viewed by any program on your phone. And this is allegedly what happened to Jeff Bezos. Again, the richest man in the world. Someone I would guess that spares absolutely no expense in the name of security was pwned. In this case, not by a random hacker, but allegedly by a hacking group working in consort with the Saudi government. The timeline on this story begins in April of 2018 when Jeff Bezos and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman meet. They exchange phone numbers, and about a month later, Jeff Bezos gets a message on WhatsApp from the Saudi prince with a video file attached to it. It seemed that the two men were having a conversation on WhatsApp about doing business in Saudi Arabia. And of course, putting the hard sell, at least that's what Bezos thought at the time, was the prince sending over a video extolling the virtues of why he would want to do business in Saudi Arabia. Now, the interesting thing to me is that after receiving this video file through WhatsApp, the amount of data leaving the phone of Jeff Bezos went sky high, which I would have to wonder how this wasn't caught by some kind of security service that Jeff Bezos would have. I'm kind of curious that somebody that works at least a bit in the tech sphere wouldn't have people monitoring this kind of stuff online. And then I might also question exactly why somebody that should know how these devices work would leave a plethora of embarrassing and damning data about himself on the phone. And I should point out that the type of phone that Bezos was using was an iPhone, not one of those Amazon phones that he sells. Hey, I can't blame him necessarily for it, but this wasn't an Android device. This was an Apple device, although I don't think they're really that different when it comes down to being targeted by the kind of hackers that this involved. So Bezos gets the MP4 video file from the Crown Prince's WhatsApp account, and then this is where the data begins to flow quite freely, skyrocketing, according to the report, by 29,156% to 126 megabytes of data per day, where prior to that, the phone had been sending out about 460 kilobytes of data per day. This somehow went undetected over a period of months, with rates as much as 106 million% higher on a monthly basis. That's 4.6 gig in a month, which gives you an idea just how large of a hack this was, at least from a data mining standpoint. I can only imagine the pictures, the videos, the texts, all of the information that you have on your phone that was now available to somebody that could do you quite a bit of harm. A United Nations report on the event points to Pegasus malware, developed by the cyberarms dealer NSO Group, according to Wired Magazine, which has adapted the software for use on numerous iOS and Android versions over the past 4 years. According to the Wired article, Saudi Arabia first bought the software from the NSO Group in November of 2017 and points out that the software is quite capable of compromising a device and accessing almost any data on it, from text messages, calls, contacts, emails to apps, browsing history, and even location data. It was suggested that the software used might have also been a product called Galileo, which is put out by Hacking Team. Either way, a lot of data left the phone over an extended period of time. And what ended up happening in the world involved Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist and or intelligence agent that was murdered, which was found out to then, of course, be by people within the Saudi regime. That happened in October of 2018. In November of 2018, the Washington Post, a newspaper that Jeff Bezos owns, linked the case and the murder to the Saudi regime. Also in November, Bezos receives another unexpected text message over WhatsApp from the same account that showed a picture of a woman who looked like Lauren Sanchez. Now, I don't know if it actually was Lauren Sanchez, which I would think. It didn't say that this was a picture off of his phone. I'm assuming it was, or this was somebody that looked enough like her so the hackers wouldn't totally give themselves away what they had and just wanted to send a message to Jeff Bezos. Either way, I think the message fully landed, and we all know the story of what happened then to the marriage of Jeff Bezos and the fallout from his affair, most likely because this hacking had given the people that wanted to hurt him the information that they could use to do so. In January of 2019, of course, the story broke in the American tabloids about the affair, and the story was never proven to come from the Saudi regime, but a lot of people think that's exactly where it did come from. Now, there's a lot of security implications when it comes to the cell phones and the type of hacking abilities that are out there in the world looking to do the things like that got done to Jeff Bezos. Of course, Wired magazine, they can't let anything like this go without taking a swipe at Donald Trump, which it cheapens your product, Wired. I have to say, it really cheapens your product. Quoting from the Wired article, "Such brazen targeting of a private citizen, the richest man in the world, no less, is alarming to say the least. It underscores the dangers of an unchecked private market for digital surveillance and raises serious questions about other prominent U.S. figures who have known relationships with the Crown Prince, like White House advisor Jared Kushner and the President Donald Trump himself." And then they go on to point out that Trump has been known to use devices of his own, not following the security measures, even though that's been debunked over and over and over again. It would appear Wired hasn't caught up with that part of the news. So does this make me want to believe the reporting that they've got going on? I don't know. But a lot of this does seem to be echoed through other websites and other news organizations throughout the world. And it would seem to make sense that Bezos's phone was hacked and that information was then used to target him quite successfully. But don't worry, the UN is on the case, and we know they are beyond reproach. But they do make a few points in the report that a couple of associates of Jamal Khashoggi were also hacked, allegedly using the Pegasus malware during the same time period, May through June of 2018, as the Bezos hack. The UN report also says that following the hack of the phone, the Crown Prince then sent WhatsApp messages to Mr. Bezos in November of 2018, as we talked about with the photo, and then again in February 2019, in which he allegedly revealed private and confidential information about Jeff Bezos' personal life that were not available from public sources. So, I mean, again, I guess that would make sense. If you're trying to strong-arm somebody, if you were trying to blackmail somebody, you'd want them to know that you knew. You had the data, you had the photos, you had the pictures. The UN wants to talk about how dangerous it is for there to be companies out there that are providing software that'll do this. While that may be true, there have always been people that are hacking into devices. There have always been groups doing this, some doing it for money and others doing it for other reasons, maybe nefarious, maybe not. This is not going to stop if you can simply put an end to the security companies that are selling such software. If anything, this should be a wake-up call for everybody that the data on their devices is probably not secure. I've been watching some of John McAfee's videos after I heard the interview that Larry Blydner of ThatLarryShow.com did with the outlaw, John McAfee. And while he's a bit of an eccentric guy, he knows the space of security. He may be one of the best hackers out there, or at least he knows a lot of hackers, and he knows the systems that are being used. And in one of his little rants, he talks about encryption. Again, we heard about encryption in WhatsApp because it was heralded as being more secure because your messages from point A to point B were encrypted. And according to McAfee, that is nothing more than a distraction right now. Because the problem with encryption from end to end when it comes to things like messaging is that at the other end, they have to be unencrypted in order for you to read them. And his point was there really are no more secure devices out there. So it's great if your message is encrypted from point A to point B, but once it gets to you, or if you're sending the message, once it gets to the person you sent it to, that security goes out the window because it's now in plain text on the device. And ironically, again, in the case of this WhatsApp hack using a MP4 video file, when things are encrypted end to end, it makes it much harder, if not impossible, for most antivirus software to tag it as a virus when it's coming in. Instead, it's allowed to run and pop its payload onto your phone where it's probably too late by that point for your device to do anything. And this happens on laptops and desktops as well. Some of the best early viruses, and I say best just from how well they work. Not that I want you to get infected with any of these viruses, and it's not fun when you do. But in the early days, when the people writing these viruses figured out how to get them on the system, and then they would turn off the antivirus software or just make the antivirus scanners not find what they didn't want it to find. So you think you're safe because you have an antivirus running, but in reality, your device had already been owned. McAfee's takeaway on the whole security thing was that we no longer have any security, and I can't say that he's wrong about that. We've had way too many examples of those in the public eye who've had their accounts hacked into, their photos stolen, their video stolen, their most private moments put out there on the internet for anybody that wants to view them. It's amazing to me that people still use their phones for information, for data that they don't want to leak into the wrong hands. It is not a secure device, period. It really is amazing if you compare this to life just 20 years ago. Where were all of your photos? They were maybe in a drawer somewhere. And if you had ones you didn't want people to find, they were locked up pretty well. Maybe you had them in a safe. If you had videotapes of the naughty nature or things that were evidence in a crime that you really didn't want anybody to get a hold of, you had to take the same precautions with things like that. When you talk to somebody on the phone, there was no record that you kept in your pocket 24/7 and carried it around with you. There was no such thing as text messaging. If you got a letter from somebody, again, that contained sensitive data, you probably burned that sucker, shredded it, or again, put it in a safe or someplace nobody could find it. Today, all of these types of correspondence, all of these types of data are sitting on one little chip in one little device that we carry around with us. It's a recipe for disaster. It's a one-stop shop either for the authorities if you've done something bad or, maybe not even bad. Maybe you're just doing something that the government doesn't like. And it's the one-stop shop for any hacker out there who can pwn your device, own your data, and then blackmail you into oblivion. If it can happen to the richest man in the world, it can definitely happen to you or me. And I'm sure we would all like to think that this could never happen to us, that we would never be a target, or if we were, we would never be dumb enough to fall for one of these schemes. I mean, you got to be careful when you run into a Saudi prince, of course, but maybe that attractive man or that attractive woman that comes up and introduces themselves and adds you into WhatsApp. I mean, I would avoid WhatsApp at all costs, too. My buddy Ryan Bemrose, that I co-host the Grumpy Old Ben's podcast with, has a very simple thing when it comes to apps. Don't install them. Don't tell him I was listening or that I comprehended that little bit of his rant, but he makes a very good point. The world is getting more dangerous each and every day. You're seeing this with both Firefox and Chrome, two widely used browsers across both mobile and other devices that have been purging hundreds of nefarious programs, nefarious add-ons, nefarious plugins from their stores. these things can get out there in the wild. You're not safe just because you think you know the origin of whatever it is you're installing. So really, my takeaway from this isn't that you can do something to keep this from happening. The takeaway is that it's probably going to happen at some point or another, whether you think you're a target or not. Maybe somebody has an axe to grind with you. Maybe an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend has an axe to grind. Or maybe you were just randomly chosen that day to be hacked. Either way, the best thing you can do is not have anything on your phone that can compromise your safety, that can compromise your economic situation, that can compromise your relationship. I mean, if you're going to do something stupid, do it without your phone and don't take records of it. Even things that you don't think could be used against you in a nefarious way, like photos or videos or your contact list or your messages or your emails, all contain data, personal information that can allow people to get into some of your accounts by finding out the answers to those magic secret questions, or at the very least, give them a starting point. So I'm not going to tell you to entirely go OTG because I know that's really, really hard to do. But with any and all data on your device, ask yourself, does it really need to be there? If not, dump it. You'll be glad you did. And on a side note to that, if you are a Windows 10 user, there's a little piece of software that I believe was mentioned on the No Agenda show that is called O&O Shut Up 10. Shut Up 10 being all one word. Do a search over at DuckDuckGo. You'll find the company website, oo-software.com. It is a very simple piece of software. It doesn't install anything. It runs and does one thing. It gives you a look at a bunch of different settings on your machine and gives you a simple way to turn off some stuff that is causing privacy problems with Windows 10 because they want to keep sending more and more and more and more data back to the mothership. This little program will let you see what your settings are and will let you make the settings a little bit more secure, often with one click. I would still suggest you go through each and every setting to understand what it is you're doing, but this gives it a very simple way to click one button and change the things to a more suggested, more private status than what Windows comes with out of the box. Because again, Windows, they want your data. And even if you don't want to go and download a program like that, at the very least, go into your privacy settings and look at what is on and what is off on your Windows 10 machine. I'm sure a lot of people don't even know that Microsoft is so nice. They give you an advertising tracking ID that they send out as they try to get you, the best ads they can inside of their products. I don't know. I don't want any ads. I don't want to be tracked at all. And every little bit you can do to try to get out of that ecosystem is at least one step in the right direction. Now, I hope you like what you've been getting here on the Random Thoughts podcast. This is episode 69, dude. How could you not hear Bill and Ted, Excellent Adventure in your head for episode number 69? We appreciate everybody listening, everybody commenting, and we hope you've been enjoying the shows. And if you have, do me a favor and go over to randomthoughts.com, RANDUMB thoughts.com, and click one of those subscribe buttons. And if we have really given you some value, and I hope that we have, click on that donate button and show us the amount of value you've gotten. It's a simple system, but it works really well. If you want to reach out to us, you can do so at Random Podcast on Twitter, RANDUMB. My personal Twitter, Darren O'Neill, DARRENONEILL. Join us over on No Agenda Social, the Twitter substitute that allows you to keep your sanity. There is an invite on randomthoughts.com if you want to go and do that. And if you want to email me, although now I've heard that emailing is adding to the climate change problem, so, you might want to avoid emailing. But if you're into that email thing, you can email us at randomthoughtspodcast, RANDUMB, thoughtspodcast at gmail.com. But of course, don't send any private information there because, Google. Who would have figured out that all this technology would lead to all of these problems? Well, a few of us did, I think. But with that, until next time, I am Darren O'Neill. Thank you for listening.
Turn down your goddamn radio!
Please remember, when calling the Nick the Rat Show, turn down your goddamn radio. This message has been brought to you by the No Agenda Stream and producers like you.
Fuck that.
You are listening to NoAgendaStream.com, the best source of music, talk, and infotainment in the universe. NoAgendaStream.com. Up next, Hookers and Blow.
Facts with Adam Curry for January 28th, 2020. This is episode number 23. Hey, Mo, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Adam. How about yourself?
Yeah, doing real good, thank you. Actually, I had to think of you today and the show as I watched Dolomite is My Name, the Eddie Murphy movie. Have you seen that?
No, how is it?
Yeah, I really enjoy. Well, I don't want to praise it too much because I thought Tina didn't want to watch it, and then she came home like, oh yeah, and I watched Dolomite. She's like, I wanted to see that. It's like that in our family is cheating. That's adultery right there. That's.
You can't look ahead. You can't.
Well, I don't look. She's the one that likes to look ahead, but I messed up on this movie. But I liked it. I think she's watching it right now. It was really good, and it was a true story. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about Dolomite.
It's on my watch list, but with the kids around, that's.
I hear that.
You got to find time.
Yeah. No, I packed mine off a couple of years ago. Whoop, goodbye. Okay. Now it's time for Daddy to watch movies.
So how's everything going?
Yeah, everything is good. I'm ready for another Mo Facts. I got a lot of good feedback on episode 22, but mainly about Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of, I wanted to mention this to you. Twitter is racist. And I'll tell you why. When we put out a show, I tweet out a show, and then, people are liking the tweet, and, then I'll, they have a comment, I'll reply, maybe I'll follow a person. And then within, 24 hours, I've got a different Twitter feed. There's a lot of black Twitter coming into my feed. And if I don't continuously do that, Twitter just kind of phases it out. And all of a sudden, where's the blackness in my feed? I don't see anything.
It's like false alarm.
False alarm. Tell the neighbors it's okay, honey. No, but it's...
He might have fat fingered a light here, so let's get him back to...
No, but it's really weird. Then I don't know. I'm not interacting enough, or I don't know. The algo somehow thinks that I'm not interested just because I'm not following new stuff or something. I don't know. It's weird. I don't like it. I think it's annoying.
Yeah, that's why I don't do social media too much. I just use it pretty much for the show and to DM the people from the show.
Yeah. I use it as an inbox mainly, but from time to time I want to follow a topic, and I don't know, just notice it. Anyway, let's crank up the wheel here, and let's see what topic Mo has brought for us on episode number 23 of Mo Facts with Adam Curry. As the wheel comes to a standstill, we see...
Okay, what is this whole people of color label? Is it just that we're not white?
Yes, the third rail of race relations. Here we go.
People of color, which I cannot, just to let people know, I cannot stand that term. I hate it.
Huh.
And I hate very few things, but I hate it. Because when I hear people of color, my brain does this weird thing and says colored people.
Now, do you believe you're unique in this, or do you think this is something that more people would be irritated by?
If I had my wishes, everybody would be irritated and do that same changing. Because all you did was take off the ED, throw in the OF, and switch the words around and oh yeah, people of color, that's fine, but color people is offensive.
Oh, social justice warrior hearts are breaking around the nation. This should be headline news.
So with this show, we're going to look into people of color.
And wait a minute. Can I just say that I specifically did not ask, why does it bother you? I presume the next show will help unwrap this.
Actually, the next clip will.
colored, it is just a word that has horrifying connotations. It just brings back with it echoes of signs that say, no coloreds here, coloreds not allowed. I think wherever you are in the world, it just takes you immediately back to a difficult time. And rightly or wrongly, and perhaps this is a little mean of me, whenever I hear a white person use the word colored to describe black people, I'm going to assume you don't have many black friends. Colored just has some of the most horrifying connotations. It carries with it echoes of a very difficult time. And it also carries with it my least favorite argument in the world, which is when people say, it's just a word. Words are all we have, and if somebody is telling you that this is not the word that they want used about themselves, then that's something that people need to learn to respect. The reality is a lot of people still to this day are confused by what word is acceptable, what word is politically correct to use, which is a horrifying phrase. I think the polite thing to do is to use the word that people themselves are comfortable being used, and that is definitely not colored.
So when I hear people of color, I literally see the sign on the door,
coloreds only,
grainy black and white
yeah.
video to say colored only.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to play this mind game with me, because this is what I think. And we're going to examine, one, where the term came from, two, how it is used, and three, the group of people they try to box in this term, people of color, or POC. So, like I said, when I hear this, I find it very offensive. And as we always do, I went on a hunt to figure out where it came from.
All right, back to ground zero.
Yeah, so we had to go back and figure out where it came from, and it's not a race unpacking people of color.
Some of these terms are placed on us, and some of them, like people of color and women of color, come from within groups. Loretta Ross is a feminist and educator. She told me how the term women of color came from the U.S. women's movement of the 1970s, and how people of color came afterward to include men.
It was created as a statement of solidarity that people who are oppressed because of their race or ethnic background would work together. It's not a biological designation so much as a political designation.
Okay, couple things in there. First of all, when you say people of color, that's also grouping a much wider group into one. Is that how you take it? Or
yeah, because who's included?
Anything not white.
First of all, we are not colors. Or we examined that before in other show. I use the term black just for the sake of argument, and that's why I say quote unquote black community. I say quote unquote black a lot. And I mean, I don't harp on it too much, but we are not colors. I'm not black. You're not white. Hispanics not brown. And then they use this term brown like very loosely. Mm-hmm. Who's brown? Is it Asian people are brown? Are they still yellow? You see what I'm saying? It's this weird thing where
it's more like losing an identity because you're being lumped together with a bunch of others instead of gaining one, which is also, of course, questionable.
For a political purpose.
Exactly. That was
logical.
Political. Exactly.
It's all political. So we formed this nice little box to put non-white people in. And when we go back and think about white and black and how that was established, that was to post slavery. There was only really like two races, white and black. The way they shaped it.
Right.
And people that appear to be white could pass, as we talked about last show.
Right.
With,
the brown
J.
paper
Edgar
bag
Hoover.
test. Yep.
Yeah, with J. Edgar Hoover, he passed.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of other people passed.
By the way, I took another look at some pictures of J. Edgar Hoover. Oh, man. Mm-hmm. You can totally see it. Totally see it. That's
once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Oh, no. It's like one of those 3D pictures where you don't see it, and all of a sudden there's a Statue of Liberty. You know, that's what happens when you do an image search on J. Edgar Hoover. It's like, okay, he's black.
that goes to show you about race in America, which is such a big topic that we probably had to do like a 10-part series just to talk about what actual races are and who's what and what who's not.
Right.
But what they've done with politics is to say basically colored people means non-white.
Right.
That's the only thing it means.
Right.
So they lump you into this nice little box, but we're going to examine that often when people become American, quote unquote American, they come out of that box. But that's just a little foreshadowing. You're probably wondering who Loretta J. Ross is. She's an African-American academic, feminist, and activist who advocates for reproductive justice. So, and she spoke at the 1977. Well, I'll let her tell you. And Loretta Ross. Yeah. Say that 10 times.
Loretta Ross. There you go. The origin of the phrase.
Loretta Ross, the origin of the phrase of women of color.
Y'all know where the term women of color came from? Who can say that? See, we're bad at transmitting history. In 1977, a group of black women from Washington, D.C. went to the National Women's Conference that Jimmy Carter had given $5 million to have as part of the World Decade for Women. There was a conference in Houston, Texas. This group of black women carried to that conference something called a Black Women's Agenda, because the organizers of the conference, Bella Abdul, Ellie Smule, and what have you, had put together a 3-page minority women's plank in a 200-page document that these black women thought was somewhat inadequate. And so they actually formed a group called Black Women's Agenda to come there in Houston with a black women's plan of action that they wanted the delegates to vote to substitute for the minority plank that was in the proposed plan of action. Well, a funny thing happened in Houston. When they took the Black Women's Agenda to Houston, then all the rest of the minority women of color wanted to be included in the Black Women's Agenda.
Hijack. Yeah, if one thing's consistent throughout these 22 episodes we've done so far, and this being the 23rd, is the hijacking by a whole bunch of other, like, hey, look at those black people, let's jump on that train, woo! That's so consistent.
But when we say that, everybody thinks we're paranoid, or you're just saying that, or you just think everybody's taking everything from you. Literally, when I say we open the door,
yeah, you actually do, yeah.
And everybody else is kind of like, oh, thank you for opening that door. Why don't you hold it for us? While we reap all the benefits.
So what's the conversation you have with people about this? Do you say, hey, we should stop holding the door open? Or is there some magical barrier that makes that impossible? I mean...
Well, it's the idea of... Well, several ideas, but one of them is like black nationalism, where we build for ourselves. We depend upon each other. We spend our dollars with each other.
Right.
That way, you're not, when you make these coalitions, people don't gut your ideas and then leave you out in the cold.
Right.
Which normally happens, but I'll let Loretta Ross continue.
Okay. Well, they agreed, except that you could no longer call it the Black Women's Agenda. And it was in those negotiations in Houston the term women of color was created. Okay? And they didn't see it as a biological designation. You're born Asian, you're born black, you're born African American, whatever. It is a solidarity definition, a commitment to work in collaboration with other oppressed women of color who have been minoritized. Now, what's happened, in the 30 years since then is that people see it as biology now. Okay, and people are saying, I don't want to be defined as a woman of color. I am black. I am Asian American. Well, that's fine. But why are you reducing a political designation to a biological destiny? That's what white supremacy wants you to do.
Yep. And it's probably a good idea to point out here that there are many things that are being propagandized upon women of all colors. Doesn't matter, because you need them all to make these things happen. And these things should be a warning. You know, you think you're doing exactly the right thing, and then you wake up, it's like, no, this didn't really work out that great.
Because when you have political groups and political motives, once it serves its purpose in politics,
you get tossed out. Yeah,
it's left. You know, so that's why you have to focus on. And this is one thing: the Republicans or conservatives are different from the Democrats. And just to get in a little politics, how I see it, Republicans are a collective based on their ideas. So it's like, okay, we're pro-Christian, or like evangelical, or low taxes, or
general conservatism. Yeah, I guess.
Right. I mean, they bond with each other based off of ideas.
Yeah.
Where with Democrats, it's like, oh yeah, you're kind of brownish. And you're kind of brownish.
When you I don't think a single Democrat would agree with you, but if you really step back and look at it objectively, that is how most of their communication goes on. And maybe that's part of some of the brain fry you see when people start to figure it out. Go, what? It like, just as a quick example, like Silicon Valley, everything is being pushed for a cashless society. And then all of a sudden, someone stands up and says, hey, you can't do that because the homeless people. And there's like a brain fry that takes place. Like, oh, wait a minute. We want progress, but we can't have progress. What do we do? You know, instead of actually thinking about solving the problem, which is homelessness. But that kind of brain fry takes place at a certain point.
And I want to be clear with everybody. I am apolitical. I call myself a political atheist because I don't believe in politicians. But just an example, what we saw in my home state of Virginia, last week? Last Monday.
Yeah.
They were surprised about how many black people showed up
with guns.
Because it was the idea of we believe in protecting ourselves. And to do that, you need to have arms. So that's what the point I'm making about it. You have a collective of people around the idea instead of my genitalia or my pigmentation of my skin or
right. In fact,
age I believe those kind of things.
I believe part of the media failure, because of course it was peaceful, but I wasn't there, so I don't really know everything. But the media failure, which I am an expert in, to me was there were too many black people, brown people, non-white people for the television picture for them to really portray anything that would go along with the narrative of, white nationalists, white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan, blah, 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 blah. So I think it truly was diverse. Otherwise, they would have shown it. I know how they think. I know how it works. I was there once.
it's a diverse crowd of people that want to protect themselves, especially if. And I don't want to go down a route. I'm just make this one last point. If you have been telling me this is the worst time, in history for racism, as a black man, quote unquote black man, why would I want to give up my guns at this very moment in time in history? That doesn't make
Get with the program, Mo. Hello, turn it in.
That doesn't make very much
sense. Send your DNA. Come on.
If I believe what they say, if I was to believe what they say, that's counterintuitive to what I should be doing. But we're gonna get back on track here with the final clip from Loretta Ross.
And I think it's a setback when we disintegrate as people of color, around primitive ethnic claiming. Yes, we are Asian American, Native American, whatever. But the point is, when you choose to work with other people who are minoritized by oppression, you have lifted yourself out of that basic identity into another political being, another political space. And unfortunately, so many times people of color hear the term people of color from other white people that they think white people created it, instead of understanding that we self-named ourselves this. This is a term that has a lot of power for us, but we've done a poor-ass job of communicating that history so that people understand that power.
Yeah, thanks, Loretta. Don't blame Whitey. We were just following instructions.
Well, they didn't create it, but political systems hijacked it.
Oh,
and
of course.
Shaped it into,
of course.
Shaped it into whatever you want to. And I really don't, honestly, I don't know who's included, who's excluded, because you talk to some people, some people are included and some people are not included. And how we made the jump from women of color to people of color, because men, they want to include men, so then you had to go to POC, or as I say, colored people. And I'm just I'm gonna drive that home because that's what I hear. It irks me.
I want you to keep saying that throughout the whole show.
Colored people.
But when it took the first time I saw the initials POC, I was like, what? And part of that is, I'm used to PIC, which is piloting command, and so it kind of confused me for a moment. Like, oh, people of color. And just intuitively, like, I'm not using that. It's also it's too many words. Stupid.
And I've never used that term to describe myself or to describe other people.
Now, let me tell you, so I hear it used a lot. I hear it used a lot.
Well, we're going to figure out the source of where it's being propagated, and we're going to go to Macalester College.
So for me, a lot of it's been like, okay, what is this whole like people of color label? Is it just that we're not white? Because like that seems like a loose way to come.
Tell me about that label. Some students embrace it. Some students, I don't like that.
And I'm like, so I was reading this book, or I was skimming this book, to be honest. It was like The Heart of Whiteness. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, the thought there is that why are you calling people of color just because they're not white? So then should you use the term non-white? But is that prioritizing whiteness as the norm and assuming that all white people are the same? So, I mean, I hate it, but it's like the most applicable term. I don't know at the moment. Or it's just the term that everyone recognizes right now. And so it's like, okay, how do you create unity among people? But then also you can't assume that someone is not white.
Yeah, well, that was interesting. I kind of hate it. Oh, listen
but I'll use it.
Yeah. Well, hey Mo, thank you for bringing this one up. I've always thought it was a weird term. Intuitively, I've never really thought about it that much. I just don't use that. I say Americans. if it's pertinent to the conversation what color someone is, then maybe, but not people of color. But that's just not me, because I just fight against everything that's trendy, including my hairstyle and my clothing. Can't you tell?
I'm sure you're doing just fine, Adam. But
I'm wearing Untuckits.
Untuck. I like those shirts.
I gotta admit, I like them too.
Which we're not doing an ad. No, we're not doing an ad, folks.
No. Because we don't have any ads is why we can talk about products honestly.
Right. It's like people of color.
Onward.
So we have to look at who's included or inclusive and who's non-inclusive.
Right.
And the two major groups are black and brown.
Right.
That's the core. And then Asians might be in it depending on what part of Asia you're from or your economic status or educational status.
I believe that Asians get a really raw deal from time to time. They're getting cut out of college admissions now and all kinds of stuff. So they don't get when they accelerate, when they excel, and they're doing really great. And there's a lot of them qualifying for entry into. I think it was Yale. I want to say. I'm not sure. All of a sudden now we got too many of them. We got to slow them down. Then all of a sudden they're not people of color. Then they're Asians. And that's another thing. Asians, like, how about from India? There's brown people.
Yeah, they're brown.
Yeah.
They're brown.
Yeah.
But are they counted in the brown and black? I don't know. And I'm trying to figure out. But I'm going to tell you, I in doing my studies here, I came across a term and I really couldn't find a clip for it, but you gave me an excellent segue into going there. It's called the model minority myth.
Model minority myth. No, I haven't.
Okay, so this is why Asians get kicked out of the POC or the colored people group, because they're educated and self-sufficient, and it messes up the narrative.
Oh.
So it's like you gotta go over there with that self-reliance, you know.
With the figured out on your own group, is that the idea? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Model minority. Okay, putting that in the show notes. Had not heard of that one.
Yeah. So we were saying just to give, that's why they're sometimes excluded. But of the group, one of the groups they want to merge my lineage with is the Latinos or Latinx, or like however you want to, what phrase you want to use, because that's even confusing. I don't know everything's being super segmented now too. You don't know what you're supposed to say. But I found this clip from the New York Times talking about the Latino race.
I think the Latino identity is pretty confusing to me because oftentimes I find it in a little checkbox on a form and I'm confused on whether I should put Latino or Hispanic, but I'm Mexican.
As Latin Americans, as Hispanics in the U.S., there's a community that gets built regardless of which specific country you're coming from.
In our history is a history of African people, indigenous people, Europeans, conquistadores, all these different people colliding, many times not with their consent. So that informs all these loaded issues people have.
It's like navigating three identities. If you're from the States, you're American, you're Black, and you're Latina. And furthermore, wherever country that you identify in coming from. And that's a lot to navigate.
See, Mo, you don't have all. I mean, this girl's got problems. She's also a woman. There's another thing to navigate. Oh my goodness.
So within their own group, they have this many segments.
Yeah.
And you want to jam Black people and brown people together when they haven't even worked out
amongst themselves.
Yeah, they're how they're going to be categorized.
Right.
So I'm just giving background here how nonsensical it is. This coalition that they're trying to create,
and that people freely admit that it's like, well, it's kind of messed up, but all right, let's go along with it. That's what I'm hearing,
and that's what I'm pointing out is that it's a brand. It's like, okay, well, I'll just buy this brand because that's what's available.
What color is the Louis? That's what I want to know.
Right, exactly. So, we'll continue on with the New York Times piece.
People say, "Oh, you look like a white dude." In some contexts, not in all contexts. Depends where I am. Depends who I'm with. Depends whole lot of things. Depends what language I'm speaking. But however I look, when I leave my name, I can't get a phone call back about an apartment in New York City. And this isn't like 10 places I call. This is like 30.
And I remember telling a kid one time, I was like, "Let me tell you, the Ku Klux Klan comes here, and they see your last name, you're going too, bro." You know, and the kids are like, "What are you talking about?" And it was like a big thing.
Because one of my daughters is lighter than the other, they had blackness issues. And I remember my oldest daughter telling my youngest daughter that she was black and that her hair, she said something, and I remember crying like immediately, like, oh my God. No.
Wow.
Oh my God, no. She's black.
God.
No, that's what I heard. It's like,
yeah, no, I hear you.
What? Like you had two daughters. One's, I'm assuming, dark and one's fair-skinned.
Yeah.
Or light-skinned. And it's like, she was torn up about it. I'm not trivializing, but it's
kind of insane.
You got two sisters that can't even get along with each other. They share the same genetic code. I mean, for at least from one side, they're maternal.
Sounds like nobody needs white people. There's enough racism going on as is. You don't need our help.
Well, the question is,
here we go.
Who is really white?
Oh yeah. I don't know.
Can Latinos benefit from white privilege?
So can Latinos benefit from white privilege? The short answer is yeah, duh. For example, not only do light-skinned Latinos dominate being on TV, remember? But countries like Brazil and Cuba supported policies that actively whiten their population, and countries like Mexico deliberately ignored their Afro-Mexican population in the national census till 2015. But when it comes to Latinos living in the United States, the answer can get a little complicated. But let's start with, what does it mean to be white? I've met Latinos with skin whiter than Jorge Ramos' scalp. And that's because when European colonizers came to the Caribbean and Latin America, they brought their light eyes, pasty skin, and some weird-ass diseases. Many light-skinned Latinos today exhibit features that are or sometimes pass as white in the U.S. This means some Latinos do experience white privilege. White privilege doesn't mean you're automatically a bad person. It just means that you might not face certain obstacles because of the way you look.
Yeah, I think this was a clip from MTV, if I'm not mistaken.
This was actually the cat call.
Oh, somehow I thought that was an MTV. It's on MTV?
I had that clip.
Yeah.
But it was like redundant. Okay. I know exactly what you're talking about with the black girl with yeah. But it's like they had talking points, really.
You think? Imagine that.